It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, and what a week it's been. I'm back from vacation. Looks like Elon Musk didn't take much of a vacation. There's a lot of news from X, from Starlink, from SpaceX, and from Bluesky. Exploding pagers. Is this the beginning of supply chain warfare? And Microsoft wants to restart 3 Mile Island. Is that a good idea? All of that and more coming up next on TWiT.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 998, recorded Sunday, September 22nd, 2024. Artisanal, locally sourced dopamine. Hello, everybody. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, the show where we get together and talk about the week's tech news. I want to thank Devendra Hardawar and Ian Thompson for filling in for me while I was on vacation, but I'm back and with a newly redesigned logo behind me. So no longer is that my halo. Now I just look like I should be streaming video games on Twitch. But you know what? We get better frame rate thanks to the RGB. So that's what really matters is FPS. I'm told.
Leo, are we sure that logo is not actually secretly Skynet?
It is.
With
it's
one
coming alive. It looks like HAL 9000's light bulb. That is Ben Parr, our AI expert guru, the author of the AI Analyst. He writes about AI for The Information, is actually also a founder of Octane AI. He's our AI guru. Hi, Ben.
I don't know if guru is always the right word, but I will take it. It's your words, not mine.
I'm going to call you a guru. And I'm going to call you Mrs. Parr now because you're married. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense.
Wait a second.
No, that's wrong.
That's a whole different announcement. I am married. It is great since April.
She's wonderful, too. Super smart, really cool person. So we said congratulations last time you were on, but I'll say it again. It's going well. Also with us, Mr. Rob Pegoraro. Great to have you. It used to say WSH on your T-shirt, but they took the A out.
This is the Washington Nationals, their City Connect jersey design where they played up the cherry blossoms.
I love it.
Yeah. I think
beautiful.
it's one of the better City Connect jerseys in MLB.
Yeah, very nice. Rob, what are you doing these days? What are you doing these days?
To make sense of technology for my two regular clients remain PC Mag and Fast Company, where I've gotten a bunch of things at both those places in recent weeks.
Nice.
And
so freelancing
out off on my own blog.
Yeah. I was going to give you a chance to plug your big newsletter. Why don't you have one of them yet, like everybody else?
I've got a Patreon page that, it's my fun little sandbox to play in.
Yeah. And you have kept, and I only noticed this because I just recently threw mine out, your tree of badges, your badge tree from all of the conferences and events. Mine was almost as big as that. And I just literally today threw it out. Yeah, I finally said, what am I saving? What am I saving this? To prove to myself that I got to go to CES in 1998? I don't think I need that anymore. It's a crutch.
I was at CES in 1998.
Yeah, I know. We're both
not sure I still have that badge.
I did. I found it.
You don't want to know what I was doing in 1998.
Were you smoking in the boys' room?
I was in fifth
Junior
grade?
High? Eighth grade. Oh, yeah.
No, fourth grade. No, fourth grade.
Oh, stop it. Just go away now, Ben Parr. Also with us, somebody closer to my age, thank God, Mr. Alex Lindsay of
Hello.
Office
Good to be here.
Global and 090.media and the spiritual father of this Addict Studio. So thank you for your kind advice.
I love watching it evolve. It's much darker now than the last time I saw it.
Yeah, not my choice. I was gone for a couple of weeks, and they came in, and they did stuff. We did paint it because we had a white wall, which was bad. That was bad. And then this was the white medallion behind me. We painted that, and now it's neon.
Right.
But there's it's the lights they moved. I don't know. We got
you need little highlights on the TWiT and the MacBreak wood.
Yeah, I know those are too dim. I know. I've been saying that.
Little like spotlights on them. I think that'd be
We're going to fine tune.
Yeah.
I have more Parr lights than anybody should have, except you. Anyway,
I just
Alex,
have big sources. I just go, let's just put this all behind a really big source.
well, I got to do what you said, which is put a big balloon over my Diva light here.
I just made a huge. I literally took an EMT rail and maker pipe and made a 5x3 and put lights behind it.
He's in a tent. If he ever shows you, he's actually in a quilt tent.
It's actually outside. It's all quilted together. Yeah, no, I do have a lot of moving blankets. I'm getting ready to redo it. So
it's basically an Indian sweat lodge is what you're living in right now.
It is. It's a yurt. I'll admit it. It's a yurt. It was a very high tech yurt though. Most yurts don't have as much gear in them, but
So Alex,
I have a new idea, which is we have to do a TWiT inside of a sauna and to see how long we can go at full crank.
Oh yeah.
You're supposed to be nude in a sauna, so
we'll shoot it from the waist
gotta
up.
be sure the audience is
More
ready
for the
that.
ratings.
No, that's not going to
could make
you
them
good
worse.
ratings.
That'll get us good ratings.
Did you buy the new iPhone? Anybody? Did you run out and get? This is supposed to be desert titanium. Is that what that looks like to you?
It looks nice, but I don't know if
It's like rose goldish.
Yeah.
I asked Lisa. She says pink. I don't know.
Right.
But here's the funny thing.
Take like a sand blaster and just blast it with sand for like 10 minutes, like it was in Dune, and see.
So this is last year's iPhone. This is this year's iPhone. If I do this, I defy you to figure out which is which. The only way you can kind of tell is this little new button on the iPhone side, the camera control button, which is kind of, I think it's going to bedevil people because you have to light press and then hard press, and it's just got different. It's weird little affordances.
I do think that it'll be a little hard for people at first. I do think Apple is definitely going all in on it's a camera. It's a camera that you can call, make phone calls on. And so, a lot of, I haven't upgraded yet. I admit that I looked at the camera upgrade and I was like, if I had a 14, I would definitely jump to a 16. But as a 15 Pro user, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I need to buy one yet.
They
So
arrived
I'm delaying a little bit.
Friday. The embargo on reviews dropped on Wednesday, and you get your usual. It's really, Apple's got to the point where there's not much to say. The hardest thing with this one is the way they're pushing it. And I was just watching the NFL today, the football games in the United States, and
you watch the ads.
Yeah, Apple's got all these ads for Apple Intelligence, which is not yet available.
Right.
They're selling this phone based on something that doesn't do yet. And by the way, the only reason this phone is needed for Apple Intelligence is because it has 8 gigs of RAM instead of 6. I feel like that's a little bit of a bait and switch. Is that a fair term?
Bait and slow switch. It's gonna arrive. It's just that, yeah.
Maybe. Some of this won't, according to Mark Gurman, won't even come till next year.
I mean, I think that the issue is that number one is that I still think, I know people talk about Apple Intelligence with Apple, but I still think that the primary thing they're buying is the camera, and they're all waiting to see what the camera did. The camera was not a big upgrade from the last one. The last one was a giant. It felt like you jumped 2 or 3 years forward, and now this one is that TikTok that Apple does, which is that it was a big jump last iPhone. This one is incremental, and I don't think that maybe Apple thinks, maybe marketing obviously thinks that Apple Intelligence is important. I just don't think it's that big of a deal for Apple, iPhone users, because we have ChatGPT, we've got Midjourney, we've got Claude, we've got all these things that are running on our phones, and we're not really it's like, okay, well, sure, but it's not like I'm counting the days for Apple Intelligence to show up. When it shows up, I'm sure it'll make things incrementally more convenient, but I don't really care yet.
I guess that's kind of the bottom line. Is even when it does come, it's not going to make a huge change. Joe, who is a professional photographer actually, I don't know if you're a pro, Joe. You're just a very good photographer in our Club TWiT Discord. He was the guy who led our photo walk in New York City 2 weeks ago. It was so much fun. Says he thinks this new phone actually does even more processing. It's even more over processed. He says, good luck getting a shadow in an image, because the phone, which is probably the case that pros want shadows in The rest of us just want to see everything in the shot, right?
And I think one of the challenges to go back to the Apple Intelligence is that the images that they showed at WWDC looked dorky. Like, so I have to admit that as someone who does a lot of AI images, when I saw what Apple was generating, because they want it to be safe and they want it to look like it was obviously generated with AI or whatever, I was super unimpressed. so I was just kind of like, well, I don't care when the intelligence shows up. As far as the images go, I mean, I have to look at the 16. I haven't taken the 16 out on the 15. I mean, I just feel like I'm shooting the best images I've shot. I mean, if you take an SLR out, you're going to get better images. But
yeah,
I was out hiking yesterday with my daughter, and we were walking around in Tilden Park. I ran into Burt Monroy. Tilden Park.
Oh, the great Photoshop wizard.
Yeah, and so, but I just love that camera. I have to admit, I've gotten really good at the 0.5 where you put the face right in the center, and then you get this entire scene, and it doesn't look distorted, and I just take pictures with that all the time. And so I have to admit that I really enjoy the camera, and I take the SLR out, but then I put it back in because I'm like, oh, it doesn't have GPS, it doesn't have like a whole bunch of things. It's going to be a real pain in the neck later, and just end up just shooting everything with my phone now.
It's funny because I brought my phone, but I also brought 2 Leicas with me on vacation, and most of the best shots are from I'm embarrassed to say, from the phone. So maybe I should just bring the phone with me from now on. But I don't want to turn this into MacBreak Weekly. You talked a lot about it on Tuesday. We'll talk more about it this Tuesday with Jason Snell and Andy Nacco and Alex.
There's an interesting.
This is the week it came out.
On this, there's and this is a larger trend I'm seeing. There's an interesting and painful trend of the big tech companies announcing AI functionality and it not coming out for months, or if at all. I was thinking about this today because I had to do something with a presentation. I'm like, didn't Google announce last year the ability to make slides with AI and just talk to it? And that wasn't that in a video, and that still doesn't exist. You can make images in Google Slides, but you can't make entire slide decks. And this
is a larger Google problem, really. It's impossible to know what Google can do because they announce stuff and never ship it.
Industry.
It's all of the big tech ones. Apple's having this problem too with intelligence, and you're seeing announcements even with OpenAI and not seeing the new advanced voice stuff. And some of it is legal, some of it is technology, some of it is something else. This stuff is.
Let me ask you. You're the AI expert, and Rob and Alex, you can weigh in as well. But do you feel like we're still on pace with AI? We're still going to grow at the pace we've been growing, and that AGI is around the corner, and Sam Altman is going to be God and all that stuff, or
I don't think
I haven't yet watched the Oprah show. The Oprah show with Sam Altman. I have it on my DVR. I will watch it on September 13th. A couple of Fridays ago, Oprah had Sam Altman, Marquez Brownlee, a bunch of people explain AI to the real people. And
look, we are seeing there's stuff under the radar, quote unquote under the radar, like the new OpenAI model and its reasoning. You can actually see its reasoning is quite amazing, actually. The hard problem is less the technology's pace and more habit change and having it in people's lives and making it in a way that's super accessible. This is why I was super and still am super interested in Apple Intelligence, although the weight hurts.
Well, they pitched it. Yeah, I like how they pitched it, but it's not just the weight. It's also the proof is in the pudding.
Apple's the one where when they put something out to market, usually there's wider adoption. And my hope had been that when Apple put out Intelligence, it would spark wider adoption and use of AI because it's built into the device that you use every day. But it's a slow rollout, and who knows now? Maybe it will still get a wider adoption, but there's less excitement than there was when they first announced these things. Proof will be in the pudding. Apple is often the one that makes certain things more mainstream when they release them. And AI needs a little bit of that because if you're really using some of the generative AI stuff, you can be super, super productive. And there's some super cool things happening with stuff like Cursor and my co-founders it's just coding all sorts of entire apps in the span of a couple of hours. And you couldn't do that before. But a lot of the way that AI impacts us now is more behind the scenes. Apps are being built faster, and that you have access to new technologies faster. It's less the like, hey, suddenly there's an AI that you can just chat with, and it's your best friend, and it knows all of your like problems, and it can solve all your problems and do your dishes. You know, we're not yet at the AI does your dishes, which I think is what a lot of people actually want.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
You don't want the AI to do dishes for you?
Honestly, of all the demos I've seen of AI, the one thing where I actually think this would solve a problem I have is having an AI look at the contents of my mailbox and make some sense of it. So CES, I would like to be able to ask Apple or Google, look at all these CES PR pitches. Tell me what are my best options for Tuesday. What are my evening opportunities for Wednesday such that I don't have to pay for dinner? Read a lot of stuff so I don't have to. That would be useful. I don't need an AI to write for me, maybe to, take a look at whatever.
But that already exists. It's just not really as accessible as it should be. If you use something like Superhuman, they have Superhuman AI. You can just like ask it questions of your entire inbox. It can do something like that. Not quite enough yet, but it's there.
Yeah.
Or if
ironically, that's what Apple is advertising on the NFL today is it can look through your email and tell you what happened and all that stuff. Again, we just got to take their word for it because it's not out yet.
It's just solve a too much data problem for me.
Yeah,
I
think that's sensible.
More stuff in the world.
I didn't want to turn this into an Apple show because we are going to talk about this on MacBreak Weekly.
Well, and I think though, from a general AI, conversation, is that I just am amazed at how my wife and my kids and other people are using ChatGPT all the time.
Really?
Yeah,
for search or for conversation, companionship?
A variety of things. My wife, got a new job, and they asked her to write her own job description, and she just worked with ChatGPT. I mean, she made adjustments. It's not like she said, okay, write me a job description, but she said, I want these things. And I know I use it. Like, I hate cover letters, and you get these RFPs, these requests for proposals or whatever. And I hate that page because I'm like, no one reads this. It doesn't matter, but it has to look good, and everything has to be spelled well. They're like looking for spelling. So I'm like, write me a cover letter. It has to have this, and this. It's to this address, whatever. And boom, there's a cover letter. And it's perfect. Like, it's like better than I would write it. And then I'm like, okay, the important things are, here's how much it's going to cost, and here's what it's going to do. And I do those things. But having to do the things that I just find to be tedious, I find to be very, very useful. I have a lot of my meals now. I have ChatGPT I make up stuff all the time. I'm like, I want to make a meal that'll last all week. I'm going to make it on Sunday. I don't want to take more than 30 minutes to make, and it needs to last in the fridge. And it gives me something to eat, to make, and I make it, and it's great. Like, it works well. I found that the secret with ChatGPT is you are a chef for a 3-star Michelin, restaurant in this country, whatever kind of food I want. Make me a decadent version of this, and you get something that's amazing, out of it, and so again, I think this gets back into what was discussed earlier, which is that, you do have to understand how the system works. But if you understand, if I give you a source, an operation, and a target inside of an AI solution, I'm going to get a pretty good solution out of it, and I think that those are the things that I think Apple can make easier. But I think that, again, a lot of us aren't waiting for these things because we're using them all day, every day. I mean, I have ChatGPT and Midjourney open almost the whole day. I find it's
interesting because you have a particular use case, and everybody has their own. It's kind of like the Apple Watch. Everybody has their own kind of way they want to use it.
Yeah, I mean, but I use it for stuff like I was doing something in Resolve. I had to export. I had to have surround sound going out of Resolve through Dante into
I rest
a thing.
my case.
And but I'm just saying
this is unique to you, Alex.
But it's like menu. But I'm having it do food.
No, it's great. It's very useful.
I brainstorm. I'm like, I was talking to somebody, and I went into ChatGPT, and I said, hey, how many? If you took all the government land and gave and evenly divided it among the entire population of the United States, how many acres would everybody get? And 15 seconds later, it's like 2.6.
Yeah, but
2.64.
Alex, I might point out that could have been hideously incorrect answer.
I did the math.
Less and less so now. The new
I did the math. It wasn't that far off.
Yeah, but wrong enough that if you relied on it, you might be making a big mistake.
Well, I wouldn't do that.
I would say, Leo, this is one part where the AI is getting better and better. The new reasoning model he's really quite good at math and quite good at those things. It's, it still makes the like mistakes every once in a grand while, but we are getting to the point where you are going to, in 2 years and a year, you're going to be able to trust it, and it's not going to make that.
So
kind of mistake.
OpenAI is claiming that Strawberry, which is its new model, actually is better than a graduate student at, what was it, the grad school test or whatever.
Yeah, the GRE or whatever it is.
It was, I can't remember the benchmark they were using, but it actually was quite impressive. It got 85% correct.
Well, I mean, I search a lot of things on Google, and I find that the stuff that is put on people's websites about a certain subject is about as accurate as ChatGPT. so like,
well, that's true.
especially on
Humans are
things that I
wrong
know.
more than anything, right?
Right. So
if
the
you
thing
ask
is
a
that, like, so
human,
when we say, I'm trying to
if
find
I ask
something out.
Rob or Rob's son, is that your son who keeps coming in?
Ducked in and out. Let me close the door. Abel wants to.
If I ask Rob or his son how many acres of land in the United States per person, they might be wildly
That's
wrong
not my
too.
strong suit. It was my understanding there would be no math involved in
Yeah,
the
the
podcast.
The truth is, because it comes from a computer, this is what Timnit Gebru and Margaret Mitchell and others were talking about in their stochastic parrots paper. Because it comes from a computer, you give it more gravity, well, it must be true. If I asked Wolfram Alpha the question and it came up with an answer, I would trust Wolfram Alpha. I'm not sure I'd want to trust ChatGPT, even now with the new reasoning model.
I don't even trust myself on some of those answers.
Well,
like,
yeah,
I don't,
you
like so I think so I think that it's
good idea.
Like it's always trust but verify.
Right.
So when you're what I find AI to be extremely good at is brainstorming. I want to think about things. I'm not going to set a trajectory for my rocket to land on the moon based on it.
Good.
But I'm thinking about something and give me some ideas related to this, or I have some, crazy idea, which I have often. And I would like to, I'd like to explore that idea. And then I'm going to go through and do more research on it. But I think that it's, I think that for the things that I use it for, it's incredibly not only effective, but fun, I think for both of those.
We have a lot more to talk about.
It is AI that we do rely on for our like rocket trajectories, but it's just not the AI that we're talking about right now, because we just got to remember generative AI is just like one tiny portion of the entire AI sphere. And there's a bunch of machine learning and stuff that has nothing to do with generative AI that is fantastic for figuring out trajectories in real time for rockets, for example. This is just it's interesting how much when we say AI, a lot of people just think, oh, generative AI versus like all the others. I wouldn't trust generative AI to do the rocket trajectories either. That's not what it's built for. The thing that's missing is like the one AI that has access to all the other AIs so that it can do these different types of computations and different kinds of things, just like how humans have different types of brains, a part of the brain for human emotion, a part of the brain for logic and reasoning. That's what's missing. Like each of these AIs that we talk about are like 1/8 of the puzzle, right? Like we're not yet at the one where ChatGPT is just messaging you back and being like, although there was some rumors, I don't know if you saw this week, of like ChatGPT messaging people out on the blue and being like, how are you doing? I just wanted to check up on you. Apparently it happened a couple of times.
No, it got debunked.
Well, then there we go. Thank you for that. I want that. I do want that. That's when the AI is actually like, feels like a thing you can talk back and forth.
So how was your school day today, Mark? There were a number of posts, I think, on Reddit and elsewhere about ChatGPT doing that. It might be a bug, but according to OpenAI, it's fixed that issue. Here is from Futurism. OpenAI says it's fixed issue where, did you just message me first? The reason is it seems to be that somebody asked a question. The issue occurred, this is what OpenAI says, when the model was trying to respond to a message that didn't send properly and appeared blank. So you sent it a message, it didn't get it, and then it just made up some generic, like, so how was your day? But you want that, right? That's what you're saying, Ben. You want AI to say, hey, Ben, how's life?
But it might even be something like, Ben, reminder, you have this upcoming call, and it's these people.
Well, I don't mind that. Yeah.
Or like, hey,
Random message.
Actually, this one you might want to postpone. They're probably actually not a fit for your investment thesis or whatever it might be. or it's like I found something, because I know you have like a date on Friday. There is something to that there is a level where it gets either creepy or extremely useful.
Google's always dealt with that, the creepy line.
Butchering messages, because the sort of random message out of nowhere, that's exactly what it looks like.
It does look
How
like
was your
those big
day?
butchering. I get like 4 or 5 of those a day now, and report every one of them. They still come in. Here is from Reddit, the original post from Send2 Bill. Did ChatGPT just message me first? It asked, "How was your first week at high school? Did you settle in well?" And then Bill responded, "Did you just message me?" "Yes, I did. I just wanted to check in and see how things went with your first week of high school." That is kind of creepy, isn't it? And I don't know, looking at this, if this is a genuine screenshot, I don't know if OpenAI's explanation of this smells right. In fact, ChatGPT says, if you'd rather initiate the conversation yourself, just let me know. That sounds like it knew what it was doing. Maybe it's getting sentient and they don't even know. Look, I didn't want to get into AI yet. We've got a lot of AI news, including California passing a deep fake law. California is working hard on an AI bill. I don't know if it's yet has the force of law, but it probably will. And a lot of AI companies are very worried about that. There's lots to talk about, but there are bigger stories afoot, my friends, than just AI. Let's talk about traditional tech stories. What do you say? In just a moment, but we're going to take our first break. Coming up, we've got pagers exploding. We've got Qualcomm trying to buy Intel, and Elon Musk, you're not going to hear this a lot, backs down. That's all coming up next on the show. Great to have Rob Pegoraro here, PC Magazine, Fast Company, robpegoraro.com. He's got, now we know, a cat. He's got a badge tree.
Then.
And he's got a child who's asking him questions. It's all happening at the Pegoraro house today. Great to have you, Rob. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And don't we always like to see cats and children. That's part of the fun of this show. Alex Lindsay, who lives in a blanket tent somewhere outside the house, from officehours.global and MacBreak Weekly. It's great to have you. And our own AI expert, Ben Parr, author of The AI Analyst and a columnist at The Information. Our show today brought to you by, oh, look, he made AI balloons happen.
Right. I didn't mean to do that. I forgot it does that.
Yeah.
Is it 2 thumbs up that does this?
You got to turn it on. I've turned it off, so don't.
It's turned on.
Oh, he's still got
You have to turn it off for each app. That's the part that makes you. Yeah, you have to go into the little green thing and go to each app, and every time you go into the app, and no, not on this one. I don't want to do it here either. I don't want to do it anywhere. Not here, not anywhere. It's like green eggs and ham. I don't want to do it on the train. I don't want to do it.
For those who are only listening, Ben did a thumbs up, and balloons came from the ceiling, and then he did fireworks.
Musk turned it off.
Yeah.
And Rob's disappointed because he can't make it happen.
I thought.
Oh, there you go. You had it. You had it there for a second. It was there. I saw it.
The balloons do not obey you.
Every time you try to demo something live, it doesn't work.
Oh, inevitably, right? Our show today brought to you by NetSuite. We love NetSuite. Now, here's a question for you. I ask the panel this question all the time. What does the future hold for business? You ask 9 experts, you'll get 10 answers. Rates will rise or fall. Inflation's up or down. Can someone please invent a crystal ball? But until then, over 38,000 businesses have future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, all into one fluid platform with one unified business management suite. There's a single source of truth. That's always the best, right? Giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. When you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time on what's coming, on what's next. If I had needed this product, it's what I'd use. If I needed ERP here in my little attic studio, maybe you do. Speaking of opportunity, download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning. You can get it for free at netsuite.com/twit. Again, free, and everybody needs to know, especially CFOs, how AI and machine learning are going to change your business. You can read all about it at netsuite.com/twit. netsuite.com/twit. We thank NetSuite so much for supporting This Week in Tech. netsuite.com/twit. Let's move on to the next topic, which is probably not going to take us too long, except for it did come from the Wall Street Journal, which says that Qualcomm just made an offer to buy Intel.
They're a lot bigger than Intel now.
Huh? They're worth almost twice what Intel's worth.
Yeah. I think that the foundry business that Intel has is probably the thing that's most interesting to them, and obviously a lot of built-in, a lot of built-in clients and a built-in process. And Qualcomm is trying to take advantage of their current position. So I think that it probably makes sense for them to do it. It seems crazy. I mean, for both of us,
there's some question about. First of all, Wall Street Journal. Come on, they're obviously taking. What do they call that? Dead items, secret items from who put this in their head? Qualcomm, probably, right?
People familiar with the matter.
Yeah, Intel has a market value of $90 billion. I mean, it looks like, hey, we're Qualcomm, we're doing really well. Shares in Qualcomm have a market value of $185 billion, so it's more than twice. Qualcomm stock went down, Intel stock went up with the announcement. So maybe Intel placed the item, the blind item. That's the word I was looking for. As a number of people pointed out, including the Register, it's besides the regulatory headwinds, when two big chip manufacturers combine, that's not exactly what the FTC would not want to have happen, I think. There are big issues with licensing. They've got cross-licensing agreements that would be null and void, with a merger and acquisition, and would have to be renegotiated. And AMD has also cross-licensing with Intel for x86. All of this means that Intel, if they got acquired, would be worth a lot less, probably, unless you could remake those deals. So this seems to me like a blind item. The only real question, which the Journal seems to be very vulnerable to, by the way. The only real question to me is who placed this, and as they used to say in Latin, cui bono. Who makes the benefit out of this blind item? Is it at all credible?
I'm sure there's a story there, but the antitrust implications, there's
just no way, right?
Way under the current administration or a Kamala Harris administration that goes anywhere, and it shouldn't go anywhere because Qualcomm dominates the market for smartphone processors in the U.S. Right now, for the first time, we have really intense competition. I saw at IFA, Intel and Qualcomm having dueling announcements for laptop processors. That's great. So you want to get rid of that? No, this deal, if it is in the works, should go nowhere. And I think it's for the best for both companies that it go nowhere, because imagine Qualcomm trying to ingest Intel. That seems like a recipe for just organizational chaos for a long time to come. So maybe the people tipping off the Journal are trying to make sure it doesn't happen. I don't know.
Maybe that's it.
I have not heard any whispers about this either way.
Am I nuts, Rob? It feels to me like the Journal is often the play. Apple, I think, used to do this all the time. They go to the Journal with a blind item.
They've got really good reporters. I have my doubts about their editorial page, but the news side of the Journal,
they have good journalists. That's right.
First-rate reporting there.
They broke the Elizabeth Holmes story.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And yet, sorry, this just seems like such a non-starter. And I think that even the article is a little bit gullible about the whole thing. The deal. By the way, we should mention Ming-Chi Kuo, who was one of our regular.
To think, yes, I alone can fix it. Absolutely, we should have. I mean, you'll see people suggest,
right,
after the latest round of video broadband company consolidation, there were people seriously suggesting on Wall Street Verizon should buy Comcast, which is bananas.
Right.
That is another idea that would go nowhere, but people will seriously think about that. Probably, I guess, there's enough banking M&A types who are thinking of all the money they could make getting such a deal to go through.
If somebody is floating this idea, they're floating it to more than the Wall Street Journal, because this morning Ming-Chi Kuo, who's a common rumor source, for supply chain source for Apple rumors, confirmed it. He said, "I'm hearing the same thing."
I think that also it's their job to report it. I mean, it's not their job to process everything and decide, well, we're not going to report on this because we don't know. So, they can say, well, people are talking about it. There might have been something like that, but I do agree that it would be an incredible lift and a nearly impossible lift to make it happen.
Yeah. Intel, of course, struggling, and really that's the real story here, is how hard it's been for Intel over
It's
the
so
last 6 months.
insane too.
Isn't it sad? How did this happen?
Intel, like in a slightly different universe, would be an incredible position to be taking real advantage of the AI boom, but just mistake after mistake over, and then it's just like a slow cut after slow cut over a decade, and like ceding ground to your AMDs, to your Taiwan Semiconductor, to like all sorts of different companies. It's just, the talent doesn't want to be at Intel in the way they were like 15 years ago, right? Like 15 years ago, Intel was the leader. Anyway, it's sad. And Intel, by the way, is talking about splitting up into two. I mean, maybe that's what prompted this takeover inquiry. Pat Gelsinger, who kind of initially, when he took over as CEO, said we should be two businesses: a foundry, a chip manufacturer, but also a chip designer. Like Qualcomm. Qualcomm doesn't make its own chips. And now, lately, Gelsinger's been floating the idea, or maybe the board is, I don't know, this might be more a board move than the Gelsinger move, that maybe they should be just two separate, discrete businesses, the foundry business and the fab business. Yeah, it is. It's sad. It's sad. Yeah,
I don't know if there's much more to say, except this moves the market. When the Journal publishes a story like this, Intel stock goes up, I think 17%. Qualcomm stock goes down.
The only thing I can think of that would make me think that it could even be true would be that someone over at Qualcomm is making a bet that, and this is politics, the other administration is going to be in power and thus lacks, remove certain laws and be able to go and acquire. But even then, this one is a hard one to see happen.
We might be in a silly season for the next 70 days.
We've been in silly season for like a year.
Oh, yeah, that's
especially
true.
the last like couple of months.
Yeah.
So let's just be clear. Regardless, so we're in silly season.
Yeah.
I look forward to January, and we can
settle down, kids. Settle down. We'll at least know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think you're right. This might have a lot to do with the political situation in the United States and the unknown about what it'll be like January 20th, whether it'll be possible for this kind of a merger to happen or not. Here's a story I think that has a little more meat on its bones and is a little more shocking. You probably woke up as I did a couple of days ago to hear that pagers in the hands of Hezbollah operatives exploded across Lebanon. 9 people, actually the death toll is much higher now. I think it's up to 21 people were killed, 2,800 injured. Some of them not Hezbollah operatives, but children of Hezbollah operatives. Some of them diplomats for the Iranian government. Iranian state television said Iran's ambassador to Lebanon was injured by his pager. Pretty clear that these pagers were sabotaged in a supply chain attack.
I mean, it's incredible. Like what you're seeing is regardless of the politics of it, probably took over a decade to get the supply chain to a place where it could be sold as something to Hezbollah. And that was done in Hungary, of all places, where evidently they weren't manufacturing the pagers, but they were distributing the pagers. But all of that probably took a long time.
It had to be a man-in-the-middle attack. Probably not the people making the pagers, but somebody who got the pagers in quantity, somehow made a deal with Hezbollah. We'll provide you with thousands of pagers.
Well, and the thing that happened that I think that I don't think people have talked about, and maybe it's not connected, but there was a point where, right after the massacre, there was a hospital hit, and everyone claimed that Israel had hit the hospital, which was inaccurate. And Israel kept on saying, we didn't hit the hospital. Like in the United States said, they didn't hit the hospital. And everyone's still throwing, getting upset and talking about it. So Israel had to do something that they were fighting, obviously, from doing, which was they had to show tradecraft. They said, here's the cell conversation between the guys that accidentally fired a missile into the hospital. So they had to show a hand that they almost always, they're probably using something that related to Stingray or a dirt box or something like that is going to, pull cellular. And they made it clear that they can hear everybody talking back and forth. That may have created panic, inside of Hezbollah, and because suddenly they bought all of these pagers. And
that's what apparently had happened, was that they could no longer trust the communications devices that they were using, that they had been compromised by Israeli intelligence, and so they bought pagers, thinking that they would be secure. And you're right, this is probably a chain of events that's not coincidental or accidental.
Right,
that
and
this
so
was the whole plan, right?
And Israel has done this type of thing for a long time, and whether it's
it reminds me of the attacks on the SCADA devices. The Iranians were using, where they actually, these were air-gapped centrifuges that were being used to enrich uranium for atomic bombs. And the Israelis, we believe with the help of the Americans, managed to get malware. These are air-gapped devices, malware onto these devices so they would spin up so fast they destroy themselves. This was a very effective attack, which unfortunately then spread out into the public because the virus that they use escaped.
Regardless of the politics, one, if you are an enemy of Israel, you will think twice, because it's not just even that. It's also the bomb that they had in Iran to take out, I think, a leader of Hamas.
Yeah, they just did this also a couple of days
the leader
ago,
of a political wing of Hamas. And the other chain reaction
planning, or years of planning.
The other reaction here is that you blinded Hezbollah, which forced all of their leaders into one building, which then Israel dropped on them. So they took out almost all the military leadership in one strike a couple days ago, and most likely that was generated because they had taken away their pagers and walkie-talkies. On top of that, Israel now knows who had pagers, because they have a hip problem, they have an eye problem, and they have their dominant hand is missing.
Well, and they killed the death toll now is 42 people. I corrected myself. 3,500 plus.
Well, the death toll probably get a lot higher because now Israel knows who they are. So now you have people just disappearing one after the other for the next 2 years.
But also at least 2 children. And this is now, it's very hard to weigh in on this because, of course, Hezbollah has been also shelling Israel, 100 missiles the night this happened, and killing innocents as well. I don't know if that justifies that kind of response.
The politics.
It raises an issue. It raises an issue of what is appropriate in war and what is not appropriate.
I actually have my old international law textbook on the shelf around the corner. Hezbollah is a terrorist group, period. There was a really good story on the front page of the Washington Post this morning pointing out that one of the people the Israelis took out in an airstrike the other day helped organize the bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut when I was, I think, in grade school that long ago. So the Israelis have a long memory. They have a very effective set of intelligence services. And this is, I've done a lot of, reading up and writing about supply chain attacks. And up until now, that has always been, oh, look, somebody got this compromised library into this open source project that nobody bothered to check. It has never been a case of, let's figure out a way to get into the supply chain of this electronic device I didn't think anyone even used anymore, and then somehow package a bomb into it that you could trigger remotely. And, it seems pretty clear that nobody was buying these things off the shelf. So some order by Hezbollah. They
were bought in bulk,
to hand out to people they wanted to stay in touch with. So,
The
Tom Clancy
walkie-talkies were
might say this is
ICOM
crazy.
walkie-talkies. ICOM, longtime sponsor. I have ICOM ham gear. I'm sure they were not involved in this. There had to have been a kind of a middleman.
And
It's
and it could have
interesting.
been-
Go
I
ahead.
mean, it is the battery is the most likely a PBX explosive in a battery of PT
Right.
would probably
Right.
be
I
the
believe it
thing
has
that
like
you would
2
do.
batteries in it, and you.
But then how do you
can swap
trigger
one
it?
out.
Do you also have to put software on there to trigger it?
You know, you would have had to put software in, but I think they probably wouldn't have had to change the structure of the device.
Right. They could just
It'd be
put it
just
in
a
the
matter
battery.
of getting that down. But it is something that is, it's a tragedy that any civilian ever dies. When you actually look at the percentage of civilian casualties in this attack compared to almost every other attack Israel or any other country has ever had, the collateral damage is actually very, very low. It was very specific. The explosives weren't very large. They were enough to do individual damage, but there's definitely footage showing someone in the crowd getting hit and no one else being injured. So there's definitely going to always be injuries that occur, but that's happening when they took down that house on the commanders. Half of the people there were civilians, women and children. This is part of what happens when you open a can of worms.
Right.
I think there's a lot of countries that are going to be double checking all of their electronic equipment, code tracking and through the software, but it's really hard to track or detect these things. And eventually, after a few years, people forget, and security gets lax. And people like.
Well, the interesting thing is most likely the reason that they wanted to supply all of their fighters with pagers was probably afraid that Israel was in the supply chain. If they went to a consumer store, that there'd be a higher chance of they wanted to get them all and control all of that. And that's probably what got them, how you centralize that control was because they were actually trying to buy them for them and hand them ones that they knew rather than telling them to go out and get a pager. So the fact that they were trying to do that is more probably opened it up. Obviously, it's and the question is, the rumors right now are that it was a use it or lose it moment. They felt like Hezbollah had figured it out, and they within a very short period of time, less than hours or possibly minutes, they made the decision to go ahead and activate them, and then followed up with lots of airstrikes because you have a lot of confusion, on the other side because these are all obviously people within the decision making process are suddenly out of commission, so there's a lot that happens really quickly.
Per the pager manufacturer, I'm being told by our Discord, the model had been discontinued for a while. It was a Hungarian pager company, right?
Well, I believe it was it's Chinese, I believe, or
They're made in
Taiwanese,
China,
or made in China, but it was distributed by a Hungarian.
Yeah. The explosive was in the batteries PETN, sold to Hezbollah through a shell company. According to some stories, Israeli intelligence Mossad had actually manufactured the devices. But they certainly modified the devices. It makes me very nervous for a variety of reasons. We're all vulnerable to supply chain attacks. We all assume that the electronics that we use, that the software inside them and the hardware.
This is why the United States government made such a big deal about Huawei. I mean,
Right.
they didn't do that randomly.
Right.
They weren't worried about explosives, but they were worried about intelligence gathering through those routers, and so that was that became an issue. It's pretty clear that all the countries are tapping the underwater lines.
So now maybe
somewhere.
I'll be a little nervous about all the review hardware I have on this desk.
Yeah,
right
no
now.
kidding.
It's not even the hardware either. It's also the software. TikTok is a perfect example of that issue right now.
Just in the loss of productivity it's a viable virus.
Hey Ben, can you check? Ben, can you check your microphone? I think you're on the wrong microphone again.
Oh no, it did a thing again.
It did the thing. It does
There.
the thing that the microphone
Let's
thing
see.
does. There's all sorts of issues. It's very difficult morally to weigh in on this. These are booby traps. These are in theory illegal devices. But at the same time, you kind of understand why the Israelis might be sensitive to this, and they did attempt to target an enemy as opposed to just random explosions. I don't know. It's bad all around, I guess.
Do we have a more positive story?
Oh yeah, I have better stories. You want to talk about Elon Musk? Let's take a break.
Better.
At least it's more hilarious.
We're not getting anywhere here.
I should have started with happier stuff, I guess. We're going to talk about Elon. There's really a whole show we could do about Elon this week, but we'll do a little Elon. We'll talk about a new California bill which limits addictive social media for kids. I don't know if that's possible. And why Microsoft wants to restart 3 Mile Island. All that coming up in just a little bit. You're watching This Week in Tech with our guests, Ben Parr. Great to have you. Congratulations, Mrs. Parr, on your marriage. I'm going to call you that from now on. I'm sorry. I can't resist.
My better half.
Rob Pegoraro, great to have you from PC Magazine and Fast Company. And, of course, Alex Lindsay from officehours.global. And let's not forget the lawsuit that Cards Against Humanity has brought against SpaceX. Stay tuned. That's all coming up in just a bit. This episode this week brought to you by Thinkst Canary. You know, this is actually a kind of a timely commercial. Many companies, all of us, I guess, have perimeter defenses to keep the bad guys out of your network. But what happens when a bad guy gets into your network? How quickly can you find out that they're there and get rid of them? It turns out, on average, people invading your network, hackers in your network, or malicious insiders, for that matter, wander around for 91 days, more than 3 months, before they're detected. That's why you need a Thinkst Canary. It's a honeypot that can be deployed in minutes. If someone's accessing your Thinkst Canary, which is, by the way, impersonating any number of things, from a SCADA device to an IIS server, it could be a Linux box. It could be, in my case, it's a network attached storage. It's a Synology NAS. It could be a fake SSH server. But as soon as somebody tries to attack it, you'll get a message. There's somebody in your system, and no legitimate user would be trying to log into this fake device, this Thinkst Canary. It can do something even better. It can put lure files all over your network, little PDFs or Excel files or document files that look valuable, but the minute they try to open them, you'll know. You'll know you have a problem. No false alerts, just the alerts that matter. It's very easy to configure your Thinkst Canary device. You choose, in fact, it's so easy you might change it every once in a while. I change it every few days to try other devices. You can have a Linux server that's lit up like a Christmas tree with all the services, or a Windows server that's just got a few critical services turned on, and then you sit and wait. You register it with a hosted console for monitoring. You can get notifications any way you want: email, text. It supports webhooks, syslog, of course. Whatever way you like to hear about it, you will only hear about it if somebody's actually in your system. Attackers who breach your network, or malicious insiders, other adversaries, they make themselves known. They can't help themselves by trying to access that Thinkst Canary. It's the way a honeypot should be. Very easy to set up. Very powerful. No false alarms, just the alerts that matter. Find out more at canary.tools/twit. I'll give you an idea what pricing would be. A small business like ours might have a handful of Thinkst Canaries. A bank might have hundreds. It just depends on your needs. But let's say you need 5 of them. $7,500 a year. You get 5 Thinkst Canaries. You get your own hosted console, all the upgrades, all the support, all the maintenance for that year. And if you use the code TWIT in the How Did You Hear About Us box, 10% off the price for life. 10% off for as long as you have a Thinkst Canary. We've had ours for years. Highly recommend them. And if you're at all skeptical, here's the good news. Try it. You can return your Thinkst Canary within 60 days, a 2-month full refund money-back guarantee. So if for any reason you say, this isn't for me, you got 2 months to decide. Now, I have to tell you, during all the years TWiT's partnered with Thinks Canary, no one has ever asked for that refund. This thing works, and as soon as you get it, you realize, how have I lived without it? If you want to know more about the love people have for Thinks Canaries, visit canary.tools/love. And if you're ready to try, go to canary.tools/twit, enter the code TWIT in the How Did You Hear About Us box to get that lifetime discount. 10% off for life. Again, canary.tools/twit, the Thinkst Canary. We thank him so much for supporting This Week in Tech. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the Elon Musk hour on This Week in Tech. Getting back with our poor Rob. I was like, no. It's Elon's just the gift that keeps on giving. Let's start in Brazil, shall we? When I left 2 weeks ago, Elon was in trouble in Brazil because he refused to have a personnel in country that could be arrested in case of issues. He refused to ban some people that the Brazilian government wanted him to ban. A Supreme Court judge said, no, we're going to block X.com in Brazil. And furthermore, we're going to fine you, and we're going to get the fines from SpaceX. I mean, it just went from bad to worse. Well, this 2-week drama has pretty much ended. From the New York Times, I think yesterday morning, in an abrupt reversal, X's lawyers said it was complying with court orders it had previously defied. Brazil's Supreme Court could allow the site back next week. In a court filing Friday night, the company said, yeah, we're going to have local employees so you can arrest them. We're going to pay the fines, and we're going to block the people that you ask us. We're going to take down the accounts, even though this is exactly what Elon had vowed he never would do. Now, I have to say, this one is maybe a little bit on Elon's side on this, because remember, the Brazilian government is not exactly fully democratic, that maybe there's a political motive in all of this. Elon is a free speech advocate, and he wanted to defend that, but he couldn't really win against the Supreme Court in Brazil. And in fact, I think every company, whether it's X or Apple or Google, has to deal with the local laws in the countries they work with.
Elon has said from like day one, we will not take down anything that is not prohibited by law. So if you say that, and look, he's been fine doing the bidding of governments elsewhere, but in Brazil, he's gotten wrapped around his own axle about this notion that he must sort of take this extra stance here, when in fact, like I am not in favor of governments blocking access to entire social networks. Like I do not think TikTok should be blocked at the ISP level in the US. But, I mean, the backstory of this in Brazil is an attempted coup, January 2023. The people who wanted to see that election overturned wanted to see a military dictatorship reimposed, which many Brazilians have a living memory of. That was from like 1964 to 1985, I think. And it was, not great. So imagine if January 6th, 3 miles that way, people had been saying, we need to bring back the military dictatorship that ended in 1985. So I understand why the Brazilian judiciary might be a little hardcore on this, even if I think imposing a ban on an entire service and threatening fines, including, it seemed for a while, if you used a VPN to evade the ban, that's going way too far. And yeah, Elon, he seems to think the previous president, I guess he likes him as much as he likes Trump these days. And in either case, that's not showing good taste on his part.
Yeah, remember the last president of Brazil, was what named Trump's, was like the Trump of Brazil. And so
was that Bolsonaro?
Bolsonaro, right? And then he was ousted out, and they were able to have a transfer of power. So I can imagine that they are quite wary about, democracy, transfers of power, things like that. I don't know the specifics. I can say that I thought that Elon was never going to win. And in the end, Elon wants to make money, And unfortunately, the stuff that he's been doing with Twitter has not resulted in making
just be
money.
driven by greed.
I have
things easier, but he's got to be free speech warrior.
I have a prediction. I have a crazy prediction that I do actually think sometime before the decade is out that some ownership group involving Mark Cuban will end up owning Twitter at some point, whether or not the loans it called on or something.
Does Cuban
else.
have any stake in it now?
No, but he's publicly in the last couple of days said he would like to buy both it and or Fox News. But I think he's serious.
He has better chance at buying X than Fox News, but okay.
Fox News is a whole separate conversation we can go and have because the fate of Fox News is entirely dependent upon.
Honestly, while my politics might align more with Mark Cuban's than they do with Fox News, I don't think it's a good idea. It's a shame that these public speech vehicles should be owned by one side or another, right? I mean, they're being used to propagandize, to politicize, to polemicize, and it doesn't seem like that's any better if Mark Cuban owns it than if Rupert Murdoch owns it.
I think one is definitely potentially better.
Well, only
than
because
the other.
we agree with Mark Cuban.
No,
Jeff
well,
Bezos
the question
owns
is
the Washington Post, and that's had no effect on its coverage. The Post is
that's interesting, isn't it?
But many times, so it's possible to do this. You don't have to be like Rupert Murdoch. You don't have to provide the grist for a new Succession series.
Yeah, that's right. So Brazil is, according to the Times, one of the most important international markets for X. It's only 20 million users, but at this point, every 20 million counts for X. He has complied with orders to censor posts and accounts in India, to the Modi government, and in Turkey. But in Brazil and Australia, he has not. And it really seems like he believes in free speech as long as it's aligned with his own beliefs. And if it's not, then he doesn't want to do it. But it's a shame that we have to have billionaires to save us.
It's a shame that we have to have This Week in Billionaires as a section of.
It is a shame, isn't it? And it's not even over, by the way. It's just begun.
I look forward to a day when it's not This Week in Billionaires. It will happen one day.
Will it? No, I don't think you're right, and that's why it bugs me. I mean,
when the AIs take over,
then we'll all be poor. Okay. That's why I don't take any consolation in the idea that Mark Cuban might buy Fox News or X, because that's just another billionaire, and who knows what his. It
has to be a billionaire who buys the things.
That's right.
Let's be very clear.
100
there
years
is
ago,
no alternative, Leo.
Maybe a multi-hundred millionaire could get it done.
Hearst was 100
the fastest way to become a millionaire is to be a billionaire and buy a social network. True. That's an old joke repurposed. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Alex.
No, I was just saying Hearst was 100 years ago. I mean, we this is all.
Yeah, that's true.
No new tale to tell. This is of rich people having access to these things, and we made a bunch of laws, and then we took a bunch of those laws down, and and social media lives outside of the laws that we made based on the kind of stuff that Hearst was doing, and again 100 years ago. So
we've never had laws that told newspapers what to say. We had laws because for broadcasters because they were using public airwaves, and there was some legitimacy to that. But nobody uses public airwaves anymore.
Right.
So,
but by the time they started going down that path, the radio and TV was what was it they were really worried about in the next tranche of things. So they limited how many you could own, and then we took that away. And social media lives outside of all of those things. And but we've seen this problem before of centralizing too much of the information pipeline. Although I don't know if Twitter really counts for that. I mean, I don't know if Twitter doesn't really make up a lot of my appetite of or what I.
One of the benefactors of this whole Brazil issue was Bluesky, and Rob, you posted the Bluesky topped 10 million users after Brazil blocked X. A lot of Brazilian users went to X. I mean, Bluesky.
I think one of the few heads of state is President Lula of Brazil, who, and when he actually posted a can I still call it a tweet on his X account saying, here's where else to find me. And the first network listed was Bluesky, and then it was, I guess, Threads and Instagram. He's got a WhatsApp channel, which certainly if you're a government and you don't like what's happening with the former Twitter under Musk's chaotic rule, taking your business elsewhere, I think, is a more constructive response overall. And I wish all the people in Congress who complain about the state of X these days, you could set up an account on Bluesky. Nothing is stopping you from that. My own congressman, Representative Don Beyer, he is on Bluesky, just not making a whole lot.
Just doesn't use it.
There's just not enough
He's
people.
taking the first step.
I'm on Bluesky.
Well, I think it's the sinking feeling that typically happens when you post something and nothing happens. So I think that the hard part is that you really need, that's the hard part is getting over that hump of there's no response. And you had a bunch of followers on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. And so I think that's the challenge, is that none of these other platforms have proven to be very effective at moving.
Is X less effective than it used to be?
Yes.
I think it depends on
I think
the
I
person.
maybe the one person here who used to use X regularly and has stopped, as you saw when you pulled up my profile earlier. I basically quit it after Elon brought Alex Jones back on, which I found just indefensible. And I decided I am not supporting the site with more free writing. And I've actually found Bluesky, in terms of having a fun conversation, a feedback loop with readers, it works well. It reminds me of what I used to like about Twitter. Mastodon, not so much, and I've kind of backed away from that. Threads I kind of hate because the default algorithmic feed is just so inane and vapid, and I have enough of my online life in meta properties. I don't know how much traffic I'm sending if I post my stories on Bluesky, but I do know how few people click through on Twitter, and it was, 1% would have been a good click-through ratio, and so I don't feel like I've given up much, and it's nice using a social platform where I don't feel dirty. And like right now, looking at Elon Musk's feed and this crew of idiots, his Greek chorus of super fans, what possesses you to think I'm going to jump onto X and engage with this delusional billionaire? And I say this, I have been super impressed with what Elon Musk has done with SpaceX, but he has just completely exposed how little he knows about social media in taking over Twitter. And it's going to be an expensive lesson for him.
Is Bluesky evidence that you don't have to be, that a media property doesn't have to be run by a billionaire? I mean, it's not run by billionaires by any means. Jack Dorsey funded it.
It's fair to wonder about the Bluesky business model, but but they may not have a platform that's fundamentally open and is designed to be decentralized, and people are already.
Well, that's why I like Mastodon, right? That we have our own Mastodon instance. And if you think you hear crickets and Bluesky, you ought to try posting on Mastodon. But it's not owned by a billionaire. It's not owned by anybody.
Right. Yeah, and it's nice to have some part of my online life that it is not somebody's vanity project or a massive ad targeting scheme. It's a little bit of the indie web, which can be hard to find these days.
It's very peaceful in here, though. There's nothing happening. No, I shouldn't mock Mastodon because I'm a big supporter. I really like it. We've been running a Mastodon instance for 5 years now, twit.social. But it isn't exactly the thrill-a-minute ride that Twitter used to be.
We don't get the dopamine hit in the same way. Just say it. We all want the dopamine hit.
But maybe that wasn't a good thing. Maybe that was a bad thing. With all that dopamine.
Bluesky, it's artisanal, locally sourced dopamine
from Brooklyn. Yeah. Well, get ready because California has signed a bill. Governor Newsom signed a bill to limit addictive social media feeds for kids. Now, how they're going to know is beyond me. On Friday, Senate Bill 976, Protecting Our Kids from Social Media Addiction Act, or PACFSMA. Well, I guess it's not an acronym. Was supported by California School Administrators, Common Sense Media, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Governor Newsom's wife, opposed by the ACLU of California, Equality California, associations representing Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, the California Chamber of Commerce. It is the law of the land now. Well, it will, the law of the state, I should say, take effect in a couple of years, January 1st, 2027. Here's what it says, and I don't know if a court will uphold this. I don't know if it's enforceable. It doesn't seem to me to be particularly clear in what it demands. It says, internet services and applications cannot provide, and I'm putting this in air quotes, addictive feeds. How do you define an addictive feed? It's media curated based on information gathered on or provided by the user. And they should.
Basically, it's like you can't use algorithms. You can't use.
Yes, that would. I would say, okay, if you said that, that makes sense. But this is media curated based on information gathered on or provided by the user. Like, I want to follow tech journalists. That would be one piece of information provided by a user. That would be, well, they can't do that to minors without parental consent. It also bans
the minors aren't supposed to be on the platform in the first place. So it's like you're asking them to regulate the thing that they're not supposed to be doing.
And how are they going to know? How do they know Alex Lindsay is not a minor? Are they going to ask Alex Lindsay for an ID?
Which they wouldn't have, of course.
So yeah, that's why I'm a skeptic about this, because there's an earlier law, the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act, not codec, that's already been stayed by a court. That was last month, I guess. And similar problems. Yeah. How do you determine someone who's a minor? And if you require that, how do you make sure you don't suppress speech for people who aren't minors? How do you ensure that you don't convert the internet into a space that's only good for minors, which we had this argument in the 1990s, ACLU versus Janarino, what gave us why Section 230 is the only part of the Communications Decency Act that's left. So, yeah, I'm a skeptic that this is going to work much better than California's previous attempts to try to address people's understandable concerns.
It also bans companies from sending notifications to users identified as minors between midnight and 6 a.m. or during the school day from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. unless parents say it's okay.
But you can send them between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. So while I as a parent, I don't know, they're getting ready for school, they're getting up. I don't think, I think we should think about that.
Should it really be the job of the state to say, when my kids anybody can receive notifications? This seems a little bit beyond.
There's always a sense by lawmakers that everything has to be fixed with a law. I mean, they have a hammer and everything is a nail. Yeah. And they, so let's make a law about this, and let's make a law like somebody has to do something about this. And sometimes things just aren't perfect, and I'm not clear that these laws are, every time they stick their hand into it, they get it either doesn't go anywhere, which has been happening pretty often.
I think that's going to happen here. Yeah, right?
I think what happens is you wait until 2027, then you get an injunction, and then it drags out for the next 5 years. Those some of these social networks won't even exist by the time this thing goes into enforcement. And so I think that but it lets them campaign on something. They wanted to get it out right now because they can talk about how they're taking care of kids before the election. We talked about it being the crazy season. So having doing something that's actually not going to happen for years. Is or good ever. Politics, or ever is there was politics in an election year. So
I take it California is doing something that Virginia is looking at doing, which is allowing or encouraging schools to ban phone use or collect kids' phones during the day.
I don't have a problem with that.
You can do. That's,
as a parent,
you don't need to pass new laws to that. I don't think you can.
Yeah, as a parent, I have a problem with that because I'm usually working out when I'm picking the kids up from school with them during the day.
And but that's a conversation you should have with your local school district, the principal and the board and stuff like that. And that's where those conversations should happen. Yeah. Right. Not at the state level.
No. Yeah.
But I think if the parents and the school board and the educators and the principal of a school think it's a good idea that the kids shouldn't have cell phones in the classroom, I don't think that's a bad thing by itself. At least they're actually kids. I think it's ridiculous. First of all, I don't accept the premise that social media is causing a mental health crisis among young people. That seems to be a common thought these days, thanks to books like Jonathan Haidt's book. I don't think that that's what's going on.
When the
Don't
Surgeon
know.
General
I
came
don't
out
have
with
enough
that,
evidence on that one either way. That one might be dangerous to really know. We're only just seeing the first generations who are growing up with this, and there is definitely.
Wait a minute, Ben. When you were in 8th grade, this battle was being fought about explicit rock and roll lyrics by Tipper Gore.
Yeah,
and then
that's
after
right.
that, it was being fought over violent video games. And that's why you had video game ratings put on the box.
Dungeons and Dragons came up at some point as a
Yeah. Ben, did explicit
the
rock
difference is that
lyrics
video
or
game
Dungeons and
is-
Dragons turn you into a demonic, crazy person?
The thing that causes
He lost his saving throw.
issues between kids is kids and bullying and things like that.
I agree with you on that.
But you can't, early video games didn't have the ability to do that. Current ones do, but old ones don't. Rock and roll lyrics don't. Social media does, because it's just, in the end, a more efficient communication connection medium. So I do think it's not an apples to apples comparison. I don't have enough information.
That's just because you're no longer in 8th grade. This is what happens. You get
kids,
older, and then you go, kids today.
Well, I'm in the middle of it right now. My kids are 15 and 16 years old. They're in high school. They're in high school together, and I will say that I restricted their ability to get any of these. I think my daughter has a Pinterest account, but that's about it. And I did just say no.
But that's you. That's your job as a parent. That's
now,
appropriate.
No, I agree. But now, when I say mental health, though, they just see their friends kind of going crazy. Like they just, because they're not interested in the social. They didn't start using it early enough, and now they just think that all of these platforms just make their friends crazy, and Snapchat being the number one. It's funny that, like we talk about Facebook and everything else. I mean, nobody that they know uses Facebook. They're just like, that's an adult platform. It's not a kid platform anymore.
LinkedIn, the new hot social network of the teens.
You should see the bullying that goes on LinkedIn.
I bet there's not a lot. The LinkedIn has the one thing that the other ones. Oh, I mean, the other ones are. But LinkedIn is, you do have some accountability because your name's there. You can do a lot of damage really fast on LinkedIn to yourself by going down even a political path. I'm always like, when people post things like politics on LinkedIn, I'm like, what are you doing? Like you are just crazy. That's not the place to do that. So I think that I think LinkedIn is actually, we're getting ready to start streaming office hours to LinkedIn, and people ask why did it take me so long? I'm like, because it's my most important platform. That's the one that all my peers are in. I'm very, very careful. I'll throw things on YouTube and throw things on Twitter. I won't necessarily just throw things on.
Well, you should know that we are streaming on LinkedIn right now. We are also streaming on Twitch and Facebook and Discord for our Club TWiT members, and YouTube. Benito, are we on? I thought we should get off X after last week.
Yeah, we are off X.
We're off X now. We used to be on X. We are on Kick, which is probably not much better than X. But
how are you not streaming on OnlyFans?
wait a minute. Let me just take off my shirt before I answer that.
Oh boy.
We are not streaming on OnlyFans.
Hey, there's a lot of
we stream on
paperwork content
LinkedIn.
on OnlyFans.
I want to stream. And by the way, there are 922 people watching those various live streams right now, which is a tiny fraction of the total number of people who will watch this show or listen to this show. But I think it's kind of fun to be available live, and we get live feedback. The chat rooms are very, and all these places are very active and interesting. And for instance, Surge Strip says, Alex is 100% correct about LinkedIn. And if a guy named Surge Strip says you're 100% accurate, I think you could take that as true.
Money in the bank.
Money in the bank, baby. All right, let's take a little break and come back with more. You're watching This Week in Tech with a fabulous panel of tech enthusiasts and experts, both alike. You have to be both. I was talking about this with Lisa. There are certainly people who make it their living covering tech. And I no disrespect for any of those people at all, but I think that we are always looking for people who are more than just journalists covering a beat. We look for people who are actually enthusiasts, and I think you all qualify. Yes, you know what I mean, Rob. When there are people, and I'm sure you run up against them in your line of work, who your beat could be this local school board, or it could be state government, or it could be tech. And they treat it as a beat. You, on the other hand, are an enthusiast, right?
I've been around long enough to. It's fun when you get to see the industry make the same mistakes it was making 20 years ago.
There is an advantage.
Government regulators who,
Yeah.
It really is. I've been able to cover this stuff from basically 1996 onwards. A lot of stuff has changed.
Wow.
Tech making the same mistakes since 1992.
But at higher resolution.
It's great to have you, Rob
stakes.
Pegoraro, PC Magazine, Fast Company, Ben Parr, who writes for The Information about AI and is the author of The AI Analyst, and, of course, from officehours.global. Our great and good friend, Alex Lindsay. We will talk on MacBreak Weekly. It's fun because Alex and I often get in fights about government regulation. And usually I'm on the side of more government regulation, and you're on the side of less government regulation. But now you're on the side of more government regulation.
No.
On the
When did I say that?
I didn't get that vibe.
no,
I'm
you get that vibe.
Parent regulation. I'm not
Parent
sure.
regulation. Well,
I'm not sure if I
in
think
favor
that
of
the government should stick their nose into that. The problem is that, again, most legislators don't know how to check their own email. So having them make laws about this is like 12-year-olds
They don't know what
open
they're
heart
doing.
surgery.
Yeah.
I just have very low confidence in their ability to make informed decisions.
Again, just let AI run the government.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong now?
I'm going to ask you about Perplexity AI and their new ad model in just a second, Ben Parr. But first, a word from our sponsor. Yes, we do have sponsors. And in this case, it's one that I use regularly, ExpressVPN. I was just out of the country traveling. And you better believe when I go online in an open public Wi-Fi access point, especially like places like airports, coffee shops, cruise ships, when I'm in a different land, ExpressVPN is my go-to virtual private network for a lot of reasons. Of course, security is number one. Privacy is number two. Have you ever browsed in incognito mode? You know that's not incognito, right? Google, in fact, just settled a lawsuit for hundreds of millions of dollars because people said, well, you said it's incognito mode. Google said, well, incognito doesn't mean invisible. In fact, when you're using the private browsing or incognito browsing, all your online activity is still 100% visible to third parties like Google, like Facebook, like your internet service provider, unless you use ExpressVPN. That's the one I use and trust. ExpressVPN means that third parties cannot see where you go, even in incognito mode. Your ISP, your mobile network provider, the admin of your Wi-Fi network, they're all blocked because all of your traffic is inside an encrypted tunnel they can't see into. And I like ExpressVPN, and I use ExpressVPN exclusively because they are deeply committed to your privacy. They go the extra mile to make sure there's absolutely no logging. It's the best VPN out there because when you use ExpressVPN, they spin up their custom trusted server in RAM. You're running it as soon as you press that button on the ExpressVPN app. You're running it. You're the only one using that process. It can't write to the hard drive. And the minute you close your ExpressVPN session, it disappears out of RAM and there's nothing left. But that is not enough for ExpressVPN. They also run all of their servers on a custom Linux distribution that wipes the entire hard drive and starts fresh every morning. So there's literally nothing of your visit to ExpressVPN on their ExpressVPN servers. That's real privacy. When you use ExpressVPN, it's hiding your IP address from the places you're going, rerouting 100% of your traffic through secure, encrypted tunnels that no one can see into. When you do emerge, as you have to, of course, to use the internet on the public internet, you emerge on a server that isn't yours. It's ExpressVPN's. And that's another way they go the extra mile, by the way, I want to point out. ExpressVPN actually spends the money. It's not free, less than $7 a month. It's very affordable. But you want that. You want a VPN provider that actually costs something because they invest that money into things like rotating the IP addresses. So a lot of VPNs continue to use the same IP address for months and years. Pretty soon it's well known that address is, in fact, a VPN address. And so suddenly you can't use that VPN on places that don't allow VPNs. ExpressVPN makes sure they invest in their infrastructure. They provide that trusted server. They have enough bandwidth so you can actually watch HD video anywhere you want to watch it. It's easy to use. And it works on everything you've got: phones, laptops, tablets, smart TVs. It even works on routers. They even sell great routers. It's rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. I could just go on and on. It is really the best way, the absolute best way to get online. ExpressVPN. Now, I want you to go right now to expressvpn.com/twit, expressvpn.com/twit, expressvpn.com/twit. And right now, you get a special deal, 3 months free with your 1-year purchase. That's going to give you a total cost of less than $7 a month for the best VPN out there, the one that protects your privacy, the one that believes you have the right to surf privately and securely. And until they get rid of all those spies, all those data brokers, and people watching your traffic, I think you need ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN.com/twit. Protect your online privacy right now with the best VPN out there. ExpressVPN.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. So Perplexity, this is from the Financial Times, is in talk with top brands on ad models in order to challenge Google. The idea is, by the way, Nike and Marriott, according to the Financial Times, two of these advertisers they're talking to, according to correspondence seen by the Financial Times, they hope to roll this out on Perplexity AI by the end of the year. Brands will be able to bid for a sponsored question, which features an AI-generated answer from the sponsor. So you might say, well, what's the best running shoe? And it might then say, well, Nike makes a very fine running shoe. The Times quotes Aravind Srinivas, who is Perplexity's chief executive, and the Financial Times, in a little dig, I think there's a little elbow being thrown here, says, and former Google intern says, ads are really useful when they're relevant and coming from a brand of high quality. And a lot of people make purchases on that. That's the kind of insight I'd expect from a Google intern. Does this corrupt the whole idea of an AI chatbot if it's giving you sponsored answers?
Yeah,
No.
I think so. I mean, no.
No?
No, it all depends on the context. One, these things do have to make money. So first of all, I'm a huge fan of Perplexity.
I pay $20 a month because I know Perplexity needs to make money.
I'm also using it more and more often than I am using Google search. And I find that I enjoy that interface more than I do Google search at the moment. And I think that kind of thing will continue for more and more people. But not everyone, like we've already seen, like a lot of people are not willing to spend $20 a month or don't have it. And so you have to have an advertising model. And all I really want to see is Perplexity experiment with a lot of different options.
So do you think it would have to say, for instance, in the answer, the following is provided by Nike?
They'll probably have some kind of color highlight to just be like, this is sponsored, learn more. Maybe they'll try a thing on the sidebar. They're going to try. I just want them to try different things. I don't know what the best interface is, and frankly, they don't either.
Right.
The only way to know is to give it a shot. And as long as you can make clear, in the chat, it's a different color text. It's like a different box on top of it. I can imagine different interfaces where people realize, oh, that's like a sponsored spot. Okay, fine. And we'll see what happens. I don't think it destroys the integrity because you're not lying to people and you're not.
Well, we don't know yet. I think it's important that and I think the FTC will make them label it an ad of some kind. We have to label our ads, right? I can't just say, I love ExpressVPN and you should get it without saying our sponsor.
Well, and being able to have a message in there that says, oh, by the way, if you're asking about shoes, it gives you the answer. And then it says, by the way, Nike makes shoes that are like this. I mean, I think that
would be okay.
It's a sponsored window.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I think that when you start to do the, if it feels like it's the answer, that becomes much more complicated.
So, by the way, former Google intern Srinivas says he wants Perplexity's advertising system to become, quote, a money printing machine. So he's got his priorities
I too would like
right.
a money printing machine. Doesn't mean I'm going to get one.
I want TWiT to be a money printing machine. Everybody would like that.
I can't even get my printer to just print black and white. So
I guess the rationale is when you do a search on Google, you get genuine results, but you also get ad-supported results, right? And they're clearly labeled. And the problem is with a chat bot, I don't know if it's quite as. How would you do that?
The perplexity in that interface, I think there's enough spaces. Like you
Is it
highlight
text?
It's text, but you can put some rich media. You can highlight the section that is an ad in a slightly different color or box. There's definitely designed ways to do this. Like, I'm not even worried about that. And I'm not worried about the Perplexity team in particular, like, trying to, like, trick people, at least in the current moment. For this stuff to work, and I think Perplexity is a better model for how search should be done moving forward. But you got to figure out how to, like, put up ads. And I think this is a good starting point. And it makes sense that, like, hey, like, where the conversation is relevant, they pop up. And I think the suggestion that Alex had in terms of like, maybe it's like suggesting like, by the way, X makes these shoes, or like your certification destinations, like here like imagine like, hey, actually I got a 5% discount for that Ritz-Carlton on Marriott since you were searching for it, or whatever it might be.
All right. You convinced me. I mean, we're an ad-supported medium. I'm not against ads, obviously. I prefer you join the club, then I wouldn't have to run ads. But since not enough people will join the club, we have to do ads.
I think one of the
send Leo your money.
Stuff
money into envelope and mail to Leo.
I think that the challenge really is that is in the long term, when you look at, Apple is slow out of the gate, but in the long term, they potentially have a very powerful AI tool that has a lot of privacy built in. We'll use the outside AI solutions less and less and less over the next 4 to 6 years, and you end up with people who are buying into that system that don't have any of these things, and then people who are dealing with lots of ads.
Yeah.
and that's the same, like when you look at like YouTube is a good example. When you talk to people who really use YouTube heavily, they almost all are paying for premium because YouTube is almost unusable if you actually leave the ads on. Like, I mean, it's just a horrible experience, like just unbelievable. So I think that, but when
it's how you do it, in other words.
Yeah, it just I think that we're still going through the situation over the next decade. I think we're gonna keep on talking about more and more this. There's a group of people in the world that are going to be buying themselves out of the ad environment, and people who are stuck in the ad environment.
Well,
and
that's not good.
That's going to be a complicated problem. I mean, I think it's going to be a complicated problem because it's not going to be even. Access to information, how much information, and how all those things. I mean, I don't have an answer for that, but I think that is a coming problem, that more and more people will be buying themselves out of the ad model, and more people will be stuck in very much less efficient, experiences.
I mean,
I feel like that's a Philip K. Dick dystopia where
I can't even think about the last time I saw a YouTube ad because I've been paying for YouTube Premium for
I changed
God
my
knows
credit
how long.
card I changed my credit card a couple months ago, and I changed the number, and so suddenly ads only showed up for a day because I was like, "What happened? The whole thing's broken."
Oh,
and
it's horrible.
I was like, "I'm gonna kill somebody! Like, this is horrible! Like, how do I?" And then I realized, oh, my credit card's changed.
I would never do this, but I've heard that there are podcasts where they have direct ad insertion, and they kind of don't mind that they're really awful because it makes you want to join the club and get rid of all the ads by going to twit.tv/clubtwit. I've heard of that, but I don't know if anybody would actually do that.
Exactly.
Next episode, there's going to be 14 ads, 6 of the same, unless you pay, unless you send Leo money.
Send me money now.
Send money now.
Now, this, the headline kind of got me a little bit upset, but maybe that's because I'm living in the past. Microsoft wants to restart 3 Mile Island to power AI. The site of the worst nuclear accident in American history.
Which let's put this in context. No one died. Coal power plants kill a lot more people with pollution than nuclear power plants ever will.
Yeah, I'm on the same team.
I think it is questionable whether, like, we don't know how to build nuclear power plants affordably unless they're going into a submarine for the Navy. Then that's fine, I guess. So the economic case for building new fission plants does not seem great. But if Microsoft is that desperate and they don't want to wait for solar and wind to come online in Pennsylvania, and they're willing to pay this, and according to the story I read about it, the Pennsylvania ratepayers and taxpayers will not pay for it, I'm okay with it. And it's also, it's not the specific reactor that had the partial meltdown. It's the one next to it.
Oh, it's the other one. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, that, I feel better
there's some
about
cleanup work.
It's 2 Mile Island, not 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
It's fun. It probably, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and the wind and solar are probably not coming there anytime soon. And so it's very inconsistent. I don't know what you would get there or how much you would get there, but I will say that it's probably much easier to it's almost impossible to build a new nuclear power plant. So being able to turn one back on probably makes sense. I'm kind of curious what the proximity is, whether they're buying, in some cases, a lot of these data centers, what they're doing is they're saying, well, we're providing this into the grid. It doesn't matter that they're getting it. They're just saying that the power is paid for by them and it's clean power, and they get to count that.
I think that's how this works. It's going to get fed into the same grid, but Microsoft is saying,
it's like credits. It's like carbon.
So we're buying this much off of it.
Yeah.
So
we're putting this much
speaking,
yeah, and they do this a lot where they, in Texas, they do this a lot where you're saying I'm buying green, and there are solar plants and wind plants and so on and so forth, but you're identifying what it is and you're paying a premium for that typically.
So this is a company from Maryland called Constellation Energy. They own the facility, which suffered a partial meltdown in 1979. It was officially closed in 2019. They're going to rename it because the name 3 Mile Island, maybe with some people, doesn't.
Well, now it's 2 Mile Island, so they can.
No, they're going to call it
Microsoft Island.
In a masterful use of euphemisms. They're going to call it the Crane Clean Energy Center in honor of a former executive at the company. And I guess, I think you're right. I think it's Microsoft's agreed to buy all the power generated probably as credits. Though, Amazon did the same thing with Susquehanna nuclear power plant, also in Pennsylvania.
Well, and lots of people are doing that. The question is, in some cases, these data centers are built right next to the supply. So because there's actually an inefficiency of sending the power, through the lines. And so, some of these are, it's incredible numbers. These are like 18 megawatt, 35 megawatt.
This thing's 835 megawatts.
Right, and they're going to suck up all of that. And the question is when you start talking about those numbers, sometimes it's more efficient, especially in that part of the state, to potentially build a data center right next to it. Because then you're not transporting.
Constellation says it will produce as much clean energy as all the renewables built in Pennsylvania over the last 30 years. They also say it's safe. It's one of the safest plants out there. This plant was among the safest and most reliable nuclear plants on the grid before it was prematurely shuttered due to poor economics and maybe a brand problem. I don't know.
Look, nuclear power just does get a bad rap. It's just very visible once in a while kinds of incidents. But when you compare to the damage, as we were just talking about before, of long-term coal use into the atmosphere, it's not even a comparison. And you can build these things and get them to a place where they're.
But this is an old plant. Remember, this is not one of the newer, sodium cooled plants that Bill Gates is behind. It's an old.
Well, most of the fission reactors are old because it's hard to make new ones.
Right.
So the
if it was easier to make new ones, we'd have a whole bunch of
Well, Bill Gates is funding that
fusion.
Sodium.
It's still 20.
They're tiny. Yeah.
20 years away.
Well, this isn't that close either. It won't be back online at the earliest till 2028.
It's super fast compared to all the other options.
Yeah. The plant also is dependent on federal government tax breaks for nuclear power in the Inflation Reduction Act. I agree with you. I think nuclear it's a little scary because of the waste and so forth, but it is a cleaner form of energy than most of the other energy generated.
It's the chance
the
that
thing
the
that
waste
bothers
might
me
do
is
some-
it's for AI. It's not. It's not. This is kind of
the
a.
AI bus could be over by 2028.
Yeah,
and then I'll have to-
would you feel better or would you feel worse about it if it were for crypto mining, right?
I'd
Which
feel
is
worse.
also happening.
Yeah, actually, I would.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that this is maybe a less than necessary use of power, or maybe it isn't.
Well, I think that overall, I mean, there are a lot of concerns about AI, but overall, it's going to solve a lot of problems. Like, I mean, the ability to manage lots of data. I mean, there's definitely going to be big breakthroughs that happen because we're able to manage that data in that way. So I think that, I think that there's a lot of the electricity. The scare of nuclear is what could happen to the waste versus as was already outlined what is happening with coal waste,
Right.
and oil waste, like it's
Right.
So what, and I think that, we're moving towards not only AI, but we're moving towards a largely electrical, transportation economy. It's going up and down, but there's going to be some point 20 years from now that we don't buy cars that are burning up, fossil fuels. Like that's probably got maybe 20 more years before it's mostly gone, and
Yeah.
so that's still that's a
fair.
huge draw on energy as well.
I'm a big supporter of EVs for that reason, but the power's got to come from somewhere.
Yep.
Yep. Good news is that new EV will probably have an AM radio in it. Thank goodness.
Although you might hear the, I think that's what they're complaining about. Is that it takes more. It could probably cost them an extra $4 to insulate those lines, so that they, that's
Well, they're going to have to because the AM for Every Vehicle Act has been overwhelmingly approved by a House committee and will now head to the floor for a final vote. If successful, it goes to the president's desk to be signed into law. Advocates for the bill, mostly the AM radio industry, have argued the decline of AM radio, a consequence of the software-defined vehicle, could make it difficult to broadcast emergency information, especially in rural areas. The bill was introduced in May of last year after Ford, Tesla, BMW, and Volkswagen all said, we're taking the AM radio out of our new EVs because of interference. I don't have an AM radio in my BMW. Didn't have one in my Tesla, for that matter, or my Ford. But most people listen to the radio. Well, they don't listen to the radio. They listen to their phones, right? I guess the issue is if you're in a rural area where you don't have cell reception, what do you do?
Leo, I'm going to paint a picture for you.
Yes.
The apocalypse has come.
Yes.
The nukes have dropped.
Right.
And all
Get in
the
your
internet
Volkswagen
is
and be
out.
glad you have an AM radio, right?
And you need to be able to tune in and hear what's going on. This is probably that situation. It's probably what they're actually thinking.
Oh,
It's
I'm
like,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's
right,
the
like
argument for
the
it.
U.S. has been invaded.
There's, because AM
Or the
carries so
world's.
far, there is a potential of having essentially 70 stations could cover the entire country. And so, and they're terrestrial based. If we get into World War III, let's say, all of our satellites are going to come down really quickly. Like all the countries have the ability to shoot each other's satellites down right now. so they're, from the ground, and so not even from space. And so the, a lot of our, the way we think of communications, it doesn't take very much to cut most of that off. And so I think that the argument, and I think it's a salient argument is, people may not have an AM radio at home, but being able to go to their car and theoretically get some information, most of them aren't going to have shortwave. Most of them aren't going to, there's a lot of ways to disrupt the communications network. It's not a bad argument to say you have to spend an extra $4 on the car to have it in there.
I agree. It's a pure security kind of deal here. So better safe than sorry. Hopefully we never have to use it in a post-apocalyptic.
People want to. It's inconvenient for the car makers to spend an extra $4 or $6 or whatever on this thing. It's not like it's driving their business into the ground. They just don't want to do it because it probably takes extra engineering, probably more than the $4 to make sure that the AM radio station isn't affected by their battery, it's the electrical reaction inside the the engine that is causing that like those kinds of things, and they have to do extra insulation and extra things to make sure that happens.
One thing I want to know that I haven't seen explained yet, if you do that work, so your AM radio works in the EV, even though you've got this electromagnetic environment around it, can you still late at night hear a baseball game from hundreds of miles away? That honestly is the one use case about AM radio I love. Otherwise,
yes, but only White Sox games. Only this season's White Sox games.
This is why I have, and everybody should have in their home a crank-driven AM radio with all the bands and the weather bands and all that stuff, so that you can, if you have to, raise the antenna and listen to the White Sox games.
Oh, wow.
Why would anyone want to torture themselves to listen to the White Sox games unless you are a masochist?
Ban AM radio.
Yeah. But
when I was a kid, my dad and I would get in the car because we couldn't get the reception in the house and listen to old-time radio from New York City over the AM. I mean, I shouldn't mock it. I worked in AM radio for 40 years.
It's the White Sox. It's the bottom of the eighth. And it's a swing and a miss. They've missed 119 losses. They're 3 away from a world record of losing.
You know, that's how Ronald Reagan got his start in showbiz. Did you know that?
No.
Calling baseball games, but he wasn't at the ballpark. He had a ticker, and he would reenact the game. You know, he'd had a little thing. He'd hit a piece of wooden block. And he go, it's a hit, and he would reenact the game on the radio. There's a fun fact for you from the good old days of
find a current baseball commentator and make him president.
Number 120 today.
All right. So anyway, AM radio coming to your somewhere soon. By the way, he was a announcer at WHO in Des Moines. Just in case you wanted to know. Moving along. Actually, let's take a break, and then we'll move along. How about that? You're watching This Week in Tech with Rob Pegoraro from PC Magazine. It's getting darker and darker in there. I don't know if that's your soul or the light.
If I had smart light bulbs in my home office, I will turn them up at the break.
During the break, you can turn the lights on. It's great to have you, Rob. Ben Parr, who has AI-driven lights and a lightsaber, apparently, ready to hit it out of the park. It could be. It might be. It is gone. Thank you, Ben. The AI analyst, columnist at The Information, and, of course, the wonderful, good friend of the show, Alex Lindsay from
Which I have too much light. I have too much light. This is the one window.
Yours is beautiful. You know what? I got to say, it's getting nicer and nicer back there. I have a feeling we're in now a little bit of a Cold War, you and I. I'm going to have to really update my background.
I'm warning you. I'm about to redesign the whole thing. So
man.
Yeah.
Yours looks better and better all the time.
I want to roll it in the corner. So that's my next thing.
Well, don't roll in the corner during a show, okay?
No. It's months in the planning. Like I finally decided, I'm going to have to put in truss and speed rail and stuff like that.
Oh my God, you're going to build an actual studio.
Yeah. I mean, I've been putting it off for a while. So I think it's
Ben, the chat room wants to know: are you a lefty? Because the way you held that bat,
it's correct.
Yeah, he's a southpaw.
I'm a pure lefty on.
You can never be a catcher, but you could be a pitcher.
You know what? Lefty, I'm unique. I am special.
That's what they told me at the bar last night. I don't know if they were talking about baseball, though. I'm sorry. I apologize. Ben, it's great to have you. Same goes for Rob and Alex. And we will have more in just a little bit. Our show today brought to you by Shopify. Always nice to see you. When you think about business, and by the way, I have a soft spot for Shopify. I should mention this before we get into the actual commercial, because my son and my daughter both have businesses thanks to Shopify. When you think about businesses whose sales are rocketing, businesses like Allbirds, love my Allbirds, or Untuckit, love my Untuckits, you think about an innovative product, right? A progressive brand, a buttoned-down marketing. But often an overlooked secret, the business behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses like Salt Hanks, that business is Shopify. Love Shopify. Nobody does sales better than Shopify. It makes it easy. Some of the number one checkouts on the planet are Shopify. You use it probably every single day. And the not so secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions. This is, if you're new to this e-commerce thing, this is really important. Getting those conversions up to 50%. That means way fewer carts going abandoned, way more sales being made. Let's hit it again. Yeah. So if you, they should never give me a soundboard. If you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are, scrolling or strolling on the web. That's right. Not just online, but in the real world, in the brick and mortar business too. In your store, in their feed, everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Allbirds uses, that Salt Hank uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/twit. That's all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/twit to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/twit. Let me do it one more time. Yeah, I love that sound. Actually, Salt Hank, my son, who is a TikTok superstar and sells his salt thanks to Shopify online. His cookbook is coming out from Simon & Schuster in just a couple of weeks. He's going on book tour, and he just told me he's going to be on the Today Show on Thursday. So watch for Salt Hank on a Today Show and see if there's a familial resemblance. I'm very proud of him.
I'm going to watch that one.
Yeah, and I thank Shopify because that's how he got his start on set. I think they still power Salt Hank, the Salt Lovers Club it's called, with Shopify. It's pretty darn cool. Makes it possible for somebody like Hank, who's all about cooking and editing and videos, to actually do e-commerce. And that's really turned out to be a really big thing for him. Pickles are coming next. Get ready.
Pickles.
He just got this first sample. I have to say, I probably have to now disclaim this. I am an investor.
Shocked.
I have invested not just my many years of time and money and blood, sweat, and tears into my child rearing, but in fact, I actually invested money into the Salt Lovers Club because I thought, well, if I can't make it, at least Salt Hank can.
I feel for the amount of the truffle salt that I bought from Salt Hank, I should have stock. That's all I'm saying.
We are helping fund Leo's retirement plan.
It is like the truffle is. It's like a instant. Like I'm going to make this dish taste good.
I know.
Just sprinkle it on. It's like the little magic make things better. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a whole range of salts. They've got a new design for the tins. They're really great. Very kind of retro design, and he's doing, like I said, he's going to start doing pickles, pickled peppers, pickled onions, pickled pickles. So watch for those on a store shelf near you. And if you like me, you'll buy a lot of them. Please, I beg of you. I put all my retirement into Salt Hank. We were talking about social and Mastodon. I was very sad. Mozilla, which is, of course, the Firefox folks, Thunderbird, Firefox, and that, had a Mastodon service, and they're shuttering it in December. It's the end of the line for Mozilla's Mastodon. Maybe I understand why when they said that there were only 270 active users.
That didn't turn out well.
That's kind of sad. We have more than that. We have several thousand active users on twit.social. But I think everybody who was involved in the fediverse, that's what they call the federated system of servers running ActivityPub. Mastodon's just one of the many ways you can do that. We're kind of gratified when Mozilla said, "Yeah, we're gonna start a Mastodon server." 270
the problem
people
for those 270 users, though, and this is one issue with ActivityPub, which Bluesky doesn't have. It's not so much account portability; it's more like settings portability. If you're one of those 270, you can take your followers list, the people you follow, the people following you, but you lose your old handle, and your old posts are not, reproduced on your new profile. And that's kind of a pain. And I say that I'm on Journa.host, which is another smaller scale, specialized Mastodon activity pub server. And if that goes poof, then, I don't have to recreate all my settings. But if I had that address on my business cards, I got to print new ones because, that's not where I'm going to be found henceforth.
Yeah, I'm at Leo at twit.social, but you're right. If twit.social goes away, actually, it's in my lower third right there. If twit.social goes away, I'd have to be at Leo at, mastodon.social or somewhere else.
I mean, this is the problem with a Mastodon or something. Us tech nerds and the ones listening, yeah, we can go and set up a Mastodon and go and join a server and have an understanding of it. And the rest of the general public doesn't have the time, or it doesn't even make sense for them to go and figure that out. It just is a thing, right? It's just not made to be easy. So
well,
I can't imagine
think
why.
Part of it is we kind of, thanks to Twitter, and then later, Facebook and Instagram and all the rest, got this idea of a centralized place where we exist. And the idea of a decentralized place like Bluesky or Mastodon, or I guess Threads, they support the fediverse, is new to people, and it doesn't quite make sense. And yeah, it has a few disadvantages. That's one of them.
If you had something that was just as easy and you had started out at the beginning of when Twitter was first going out, you could have a different thing. The thing is just ease of use just matters to people. Also, complete aside, every time I hear fediverse, I always think it's 300, it's like a knockoff MCU, and I think there's 300 different variations of Captain America, all in a Mastodon server or something. I don't know what it goes through my brain, but when I hear fediverse, I always think weird MCU.
Well, and I just want to underline something you said there. It was some people need to be easy to use. Interface is everything. I mean, half the time, Apple all they do is they take something that someone else has done and just make it run smoothly. That's they just take the sharp edges. We're just going to take one more round of sandpaper and just make this nice and smooth, and then hand it back to you as if it was something new. And I think that a lot of companies at their peril underestimate the power of interface, and the power of ease of use. And I think that it's really, really important, and I think that I just see it all the time. You see something that, and it's a great technology, and then someone made it difficult. And I have to admit, for me, I didn't really, Mastodon and Bluesky I looked at and I was like, oh, it's really complicated.
So you're saying Apple should...
It's not that complicated.
Come on
now.
No, Apple wouldn't touch it. No, I'm not saying it.
Do they still own yourworld.com? They could put it on that domain.
No, I didn't look at it as too complicated for me. I looked at it as too complicated
for normal people. No, I agree.
And then I was kind of that means I'm not going to get the same charge out of it. And so then I was kind of like, well, I'm not going to. I just don't have time.
In the days before number portability, your phone number didn't follow you around, right? Of course, when there was just one Ma Bell, it wasn't a big problem. But as soon as there were many different carriers and your number stayed with that carrier, that was a big deal. In fact, I don't think cell phone adoption would have the same kind of success.
My parents have had the same phone number. I mean, they changed the prefix, but outside of the prefix, and when Pittsburgh split it, I'm still bitter about that. But anyway, the
you mean the area code? You got a different area code.
Yeah, when they switched the area code, they outside of that area code change, my parents have had the same phone number for over 50 years. It's like the same.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take your house number with you. You can take your phone number with you. Well, Rob, maybe you can't take your Mastodon account with you, but
I've had my number for 25 years. I haven't changed it.
I think it's a good thing to change your phone number regularly. Are you kidding?
No.
I probably had mine for the same amount of time as well.
Don't you get a lot of
one phone number my whole life?
I'm on Do Not Disturb all the time. I don't.
Yeah, you don't ever use it. That's why.
I don't think about it at all.
You just don't answer it.
I don't answer it. If you don't schedule a call with me, I'm not talking.
I rest my case. I've had the same number for 50 years. I can't answer it.
No, I did. So you have a lot of control.
Phone is not even used for the phone call.
No,
now.
I have. So between 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. I'm on Do Not Disturb, and between 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. I'm on a focus mode that allows
there's
12
certain people
call me,
a limited number.
And that's fine for me, and I don't have notifications on for anything because that is a horrible way to think. So having things interrupt you all the time is such a horrible idea.
I would just like to interrupt this broadcast to say that Salt Hank will be on the Today Show on Thursday. I just went to saltloversclub.com because I was curious if Salt Hank was still selling using Shopify. This is one by you ought to try. I can't say it on the air, but notice, yes, he is still using Shopify. So I just wanted to check that and give a little plug to the Salt Lovers Club and get the cookbook. It's pre-order now. Salt Hank, a 5-napkin situation.
Give me a minute. I'm going to go buy some salt.
Oh, you got to get the cookbook, though. Look at these recipes. It's amazing.
Good,
It's amazing. Such a good cook.
It is dinner time on the East Coast, by the way. Completely.
I know. This is cruel.
Off the screen. You're making me hungry.
Isn't this cruel? Is this mean?
Damn it.
All right, let's move on. I'm going to make you unhappy again. Let's see. Amazon tells employees, you got to come back to work 5 days a week. No more remote work. This seems a little retro to me. We're doing the opposite, by the way. We no longer have an office people can come to. They have to come to my house and bug me.
I think the hard part is that you won't know immediately. I mean, I think that usually I would say that a full back to work 5 days a week and even partial back to work is really a sign of a lack of ability to manage people well online, and that's a limitation of their management system. But I think that I kind of get the people have to be in the office for 3 days a week. But we're going to have to make everybody come back. I think that what I find, and I have friends that work at a lot of these companies, that what you suddenly see is a lot of activity on LinkedIn. Doesn't mean they quit. Doesn't mean they throw any hard, they don't throw any hard pitches. What they do is suddenly you see they're posting, this is what I learned, and this is da-da-da-da-da-da. And what they're doing is the draw out of this is oftentimes 3 to 5 years. And I know some people who
they quiet quit, sort of. Yeah.
Well, they don't quite. I mean, but what they're doing is
they still work, but they start looking.
They're laying out
And the productivity impact of someone with 1 foot in and 1 foot out is pretty brutal. It is, they're not, they're not as likely to do a lot of things. For instance, they're not as likely to want to apply for patents because they don't want to slow down whatever they're going to do next. And so they're not as likely to take on longer term projects because they don't want to be tied up in those.
Here's the email from Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, and it starts, "Hey team." By the way, immediately I'm turned off.
Yeah, exactly.
No, this is bad news. I wanted to send a note on a couple of changes we're making to further strengthen our culture and teams. Oh, exactly, right? Same reaction. We want to operate like the world's largest startup. So we're asking everybody to come back to work 5 days a week. We're also going to bring back assigned desk arrangements. Offices, right? We understand some of our teammates may have set up their personal lives in such a way that returning to the office will require some adjustments. To help ensure a smooth transition, we're not going to do this till January 2nd. So get going. You got 3 months.
You have 3 months to find another job.
Another job. LinkedIn's going to get very busy. Wow.
The issue is that it's also one of the problems that companies have had with people staying at home is that the actual attrition rate is much lower. So a lot of companies have had an issue where not as many people are moving. They actually need a certain number of people to quit, find other jobs because they're trying to, and they don't want to do layoffs because that gets press. And so oftentimes what they expect a certain amount of churn, and that churn has been really low because people are pretty, they're like, well, maybe it's not the best job in the world, but I'm working at home. Like, how bad can this be? And so I think I think that they have this accelerates that and will clear out the people who aren't as serious as Amazon wants. But the problem that you oftentimes have is that many of your most effective people are the people who are also the most mobile and the most that want flexibility. And so they could end up with and again, I don't think it's going to be a sudden thing. I don't think you're going to see a bunch of people quitting, but I think that what you're going to see is this over 3 to 5 years, can they stay vibrant? Because this is a huge argument. I know a lot of startups that one of their big things when they post new jobs is that this is a remote job, and they can pay oftentimes from one person I talked to 25 to 30% less than a large company by saying you can work completely at home. And so
is that desirable?
Yeah,
people will take a 1/3 pay cut.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, to be able to live wherever they want, because
see how
for
this
them
works out
it's a
around
30%. They're working. They're now working out of St. Louis or out of Des Moines or out of somewhere else, not trying to pay the bills
Rob,
in San Francisco.
you work at home, yeah?
Yeah, as you can see. So,
But at least you can afford to turn the lights on. I'm glad to see that. That's good.
Amazon's HQ2 buildings, they built two of the tallest buildings in the, they call it the National Landing neighborhood, Crystal City. And, those were built with the intention of having lots of people in them. And lots of people were hired with the idea, at least pre-2020, that you will be working in these buildings. And is
that a good reason to bring people back to work, though?
Well, I mean, if
we built them, we got to use them.
I really think
they're not done. They have
a
whole another block they plan to build with the building that's going to look like this giant auger. Some have compared it to the poop emoji.
Is this in Seattle? Where is this?
This is Arlington.
It's PA, yeah.
They have a couple of them, yeah.
I have to admit, I've been to Crystal City, and I apologize to anyone I'm going to say this about. It's not a great place. I wouldn't want to. It's not a place that I'd want to be.
I lived there in 1993.
Out all the time.
It was terrible. It is vastly.
I didn't want to say that word.
Trust me.
But I was like, I drove through it, and I was, had some meetings there, and I was just kind of like, whoa, this is like, Anyway, it's not bad, like dangerous or something. It's just it lacks all culture. Like
here's a picture of Crystal
that
City.
Picture itself is already out of date. Yeah, there's a lot of new construction that's gone on.
There's no corkscrew yet.
How many buildings got hit with the ugly stick in the 1970s and the 1960s?
So
It's so industrial.
Yeah,
that's totally old because that hangar at National Airport doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
That picture I'm going to say is like 10 years out of date. Which, if I
it's 2020. It's only 4 years out of date.
Okay.
I feel like Amazon looked at some data and they're like, we want to get rid of some people, and that like it's okay if we lose a couple. But I don't know if they anticipated this much internal backlash. But the long term is the top talent is going to find things where they're more flexible.
This looks worse than living in Shenzhen, China. This looks like they would have to put nets outside the windows. I'm just saying.
Put some color on it.
Yeah, that
one's grim.
Yeah, so like number one, there should be bike lanes on each street on the left.
This is from Wikipedia. This is the 80s. Okay.
The other thing
this is how much improved it is in 2020.
Well, and again, if you're not taking the T or whatever to not the T, but the metro to Crystal City, which there is a big thing there.
Oh, so you don't have to live there. Okay.
But the traffic is intense, and so, there's this grind, especially if you haven't been doing it anymore. There's a grind of the traffic to get to, companies
it says
now.
Crystal City has 22,000 residents. 60,000 people come to work there every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, so you're sitting in, and what happens is some people are willing to put up with it for 3 days a week or whatever, and then they take Monday and Friday off or whatever, but it is brutal. Like, I mean, driving to many of these headquarters is, you're talking about thousands of people.
People choose to drive to Crystal City when, yes, the metro goes there. No one's making you do that.
Yeah, but the metro gets pretty busy at that time too. Like it's a pretty rough.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on the metro going during rush hour to the Crystal City, and it's not a great experience. like I was like, I'm never doing this again. I just didn't want to go to Crystal City anymore. So, but I was like, I may move my date. I move my meetings to lunches instead of mornings.
And the reason is it exists is because it's only 5 miles away from Washington D.C. So it's near the center of power. Right?
Well, there's a lot of things.
Pentagon's
there
there
also that are the center of power.
Yeah.
so there's a lot there. But I think that. Regardless of whether it's Crystal City or Seattle or San Francisco or Cupertino or any of these things, the traffic for all of these, I mean, the drive that you have to do if you want to be able to afford somewhere to live, or you're getting on one of these buses and you're taking the bus down, but you're blowing 3 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours of your day just getting to work, and it's just it just feels I don't have to do that. I work from home. So I only have to travel when I have an event. But I have friends that are just really, it's soul crushing after COVID. It's a different feel because you suddenly had all this time to have a different experience. And it was fine that's when you went straight from school to doing this and you never knew any other way. And that's just the way we all do it. It was one thing. When you had a couple of years to not have that and then you put it back into the system, it's a different experience for people, I think. And I think and again, I think a lot of companies that are trying to get everyone to come back. And it's not that, I mean, I think if you made it a great experience, it'd be another thing too. I mean, I get that they have assigned desks, but it's essentially being hoarded in like cattle. And now the cattle have their own little stall.
It's really an industrial era vision of work, isn't it? Yeah. Like almost an assembly line, except for data.
Well, and I think if you gave people more offices, I mean, I think that even Apple, like they built that spaceship and, it's all shared. I mean, and the problem is that it's just really hard. You talk to anyone who sits in that, and I've been a gray badge, a red badge, a yellow badge, orange badge, all these badges. So I've sat in those environments, and I can say that it's really hard to think. It's really hard to think about anything important when there's people talking all the time and people walking over and saying something to you while you're trying to figure something out. Like it is, for every quote unquote hallway experience, hallway conversation that made a big difference. There's 100 places where people are interrupting you while you're trying to get something done. And so the ability to have deep thought when you're in a shared environment is almost zero, and so all that collaboration is oftentimes canceled out by the fact that everyone's distracting everybody all the time. People wear headphones all day, just to try to cut everybody else out,
But I should point out, really you are very fortunate that you don't have to do it. I'm fortunate that I don't have to do it. I'm at the end of my career. That's why I don't have to do it. But most people do have to work in these environments. And you've got companies like Amazon saying, and you've got to work here 5 days a week.
Well, and again, I think that what happens is not something that happens suddenly. It's something that happens over time, that they're looking for jobs that are going to give them more flexibility, looking for those jobs. And I think companies that force their employees to come back to the office 5 days a week will lose vibrancy over the next decade. Not tomorrow, not next year, but over the next decade, they're going to be the next Intel, because they're going to slowly bleed out all of their best talent, because that best talent is going to be looking for that flexibility.
Joe says he likes going to the office once or twice a week. It's a nice change of pace. He doesn't mention he has a 3-month-old at home. Those are the people who say, again, yeah, I could go to work.
It's not the question of like being able to go to the office a couple times a week. There is a benefit to that.
Sure.
It's the 5 times a week and no flexibility, whereas other companies at the very minimum are like, yeah, maybe you'll come back a couple times a week, but a couple times deep thought at home. And then you can get your collaboration stuff done and your meetings done in the office during the middle of the week. That makes...
It's interesting how COVID really changed that whole thing. And it changed it for us too at TWiT. We, everybody had to work from home for a few years because we couldn't, I went to the office, but it was just me and a couple of engineers. Then we decided to do a 4-day work week, which people seem to like. And now we have no central place. And I'm starting to wonder, maybe we need to have, get-togethers once in a while, just so people can see other people.
One of a good friend of mine that is in a company that has been distributed for decades. And one of the things that they do is they have daily meetings, stand-ups that are virtual, and they used to do it over the phone. Like they were talking about the fact that they've been doing this since before video was there, but they used to do it over the phone, and everyone's expected to have an office at their home. Like they're expected to not, like there's a room that is where they're going to be part of it. That's part of the cost of being in the company. But they have, in the same cities, they have things that they have opportunities every month to do something in the region every quarter. And the company pays, because they're not paying rent, they pay everybody to come together once a year. And those things are considered vital, into culture building, but they're also spending a lot of time, in that area. And I feel like because of office hours, it's not my company, but I'm interacting with people all over the world every day, all day. On those types of things. And I feel like we get excited to see each other because, I get to meet every time I fly to another city. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to this place, and all the folks in office hours not all of them, but a bunch of them will show up and we'll all get to talk to each other. So I think there's an interest in that. I think that the human contact is important, but I don't know if you need it.
It's really, to me, it's very interesting. It's a big change in our culture, in our human culture. And just like social media, I don't know if it'll make us more detached That's been
But
the,
I
that's
think
been the
that- Or more
trend going back to
productive.
tribal societies to modern societies. This trend of kind of people dispersed all over the place. But Ben, go ahead.
I'll just a couple of things. Like one, that's a whole separate discussion, and like also loneliness and like
Yeah.
location, all that.
Yeah.
I would say like, look, I'm very much on one side because the company my co-founder Matt and I, the AI company we started in 2016, started out as all remote,
Right.
and we had investors who told us no. Because we were all remote. And then COVID happened, and we were, for like 2020, the belle of the ball because we had just raised money. We were teaching people how to do all remote. We had like had all those systems. We were like on podcasts talking about it. And like we're still all remote. And I would say like we wouldn't have been able to do the company without doing that. So like I'm very much on like the side of like I get why people want to be able to go and like bring people together and like, but there's lots of ways to do it. Whether or not you're all remote, you like, yeah, you fly people in together, which is a thing that we've done, or you have a couple of days a week in and a couple of days a week out. It's just it's just a shooting in the foot, slow, steady like blood drip that's going to happen from companies like Amazon who are doing like trying to go back to the world as it was before COVID. But the world is fundamentally changed. The way people think is fundamentally changed, and the options have fundamentally changed.
Life has
I will
changed.
bet, though, if Amazon gets this to work, lots of other companies will be like, okay, that's the proof we need. We're going to impose the exact same policy.
Again, lots of big companies, but that provides the opportunity for smaller companies and companies that want to be more aggressive. And I think that part of what makes this work that wouldn't have worked 10 years ago are things like Zoom and video conferencing that has gotten so good that I think that changes the calculation a lot.
We've been surfing that technological edge since we started TWiT.
Yeah.
When I started doing podcasting, and by the way, almost exactly 20 years ago now. I think that anniversary is in the next few days. It was you had to be sitting in the same room as the person.
Right.
And then somebody called me with Skype on the radio show, and I said, hey, this sounds pretty good. Remember, Alex, we started using Skype. And it didn't matter that I was in Petaluma and everybody was, I don't even know where you guys are.
When we did the last TWiT that was in the
studio.
In the studio. I'm not going to argue that there's something about that being
I love
in the same
that.
room moves a lot faster.
I would prefer that if it were possible.
But what you give up is the ability to get all these people from all over. I mean, it's not practical to do a weekly show and expect to get
we wouldn't get
a
the
much
quality
higher
of
level of
panelists that we
talent.
get. Yeah.
And so when you give people the option, when you start for companies that do go virtually and don't force people to move to their headquarters or move to where their offices are and are getting them from anywhere, I think that's a huge competitive advantage. And I just think companies that are thinking terrestrial, are going to be at a disadvantage over the next decade as all of these technologies get better and better. I mean, I looked at, we've been talking, and I've worked on lots of campaigns, and I'm not working on any this fall. So I'm just going to say that I usually am working on some.
It's important to say that this year. Yeah,
it's important to say that I'm not working on anything. But what I will say is that there was a change in politics that happened last week. If you watch the Oprah Harris, event, that is the state of the art when it comes to hybrid events. And for people who are paying attention to it, that is something to see. They were using what looks like Zoom tiles along with Zoom ISO, and they had literally grandstands of people virtually sitting there. They were bringing actors and other people in virtually, and
was this for the Olympics? What was this for?
No, this is for it's a fundraiser for Harris.
It was big. Oprah hosted basically like a version of her show where she got to like ask Harris a whole bunch of questions, and millions of people tuned in, and you had on the Zooms all the people who had organized like white dudes for Harris and black women for Harris.
Meryl Streep showed up.
Right, Meryl Streep showed up, and these other actors, but they also they used it as a forum for like voters to ask semi-tough questions so that like she could air it out. I actually know who the technology that they're using for like that hybrid kind of thing, and I kind of know what they're using, and it's incredible.
Is this Mobilize?
No, they were using Zoom. I mean, they were using
no. But
Zoom.
what I mean is, there's another piece of tech. There's another thing for like the actual physical venue, and for there's some extra tech for having all the screens on.
It's interesting. This has become the thing to do in this political season, hasn't it? white dudes for Harris and so forth.
Well, and again, but the beyond all the messaging and everything else, what was important there was seeing the
technology.
There were 270,000 concurrently watching that show.
Yeah.
While they brought in people that it would have been logistically impossible to do in the time frame.
Right.
And what you're starting to see is that's 270,000. We're going to see events in the next couple of years that are millions.
Yeah.
Of people. And the thing is that is as you start to think in those terms, a lot of this, like we all have to come back to the office, feels very antiquated.
Yeah.
Then
we're on the cusp of a very different world.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty clear. Hey, if Rob Pegoraro were in the studio with me, I would be able to perceive that he was about to faint from hunger. So I will take a break, and we will get you to your dinner in a minute, Rob. Okay? I apologize. I can see you.
I did have a late lunch.
Yeah, I think you're kind of starting to fade a little bit, as we all are. We got a great panel, though. And this is really amazing what can happen when I compare 20 years ago. I spent hours after every show trying to make it sound okay. We couldn't do video. And now this is like we're all in the same room. I mean, it's kind of amazing, really. What a world. What a time.
You're jinxing this whole production, man. Stop.
I know. I'm guaranteeing it's going to fall apart right now.
To a side-by-side view of episode 1 and episode 1000. Just look and listen to the difference.
No, it's true. It's true. I feel very fortunate that we've been here for 20 years. It feels like that too, doesn't it, Rob? And able to watch this transition happen. We'll have final thoughts in a moment. Our show this week brought to you by Veeam, VEEAM. Without your data, your customers' trust turns to digital dust. That's why Veeam's data protection and ransomware, you got to listen to me when I'm talking about this. That's why Veeam's data protection and ransomware recovery ensures that you can secure and restore your enterprise data wherever and whenever you need it. If that doesn't set off alarms in your head, if you've not been following the headlines and see attack and breach and ransomware one after another, then you're not paying attention. If you're in business these days, you need Veeam. And I'll give you a little hint here. Veeam, VEEAM, is trusted by over 77% of the Fortune 500. 77% of the Fortune 500 uses Veeam to keep their businesses running when digital disruptions like ransomware strike. It's a really important product. You need to be data resilient in this day and age. Now, coming up October 1st, you can join Veeam, the global leader in data resilience, for their 2024 Veeam on Data Resilience Summit. A world without data is one that grinds to a halt, but data-resilient organizations don't let the threat of cyber attacks or disruptions define them because they put the plan, the expertise, and the solutions in place to keep their businesses running no matter what. Whenever I hear about a business paying tens of millions of dollars in ransomware fees or down and out for weeks at a time, losing billions, I say, what were you thinking? Why hadn't you got to call Veeam? When you join the virtual Veeam on Data Resilience Summit, you're going to learn things about, for instance, the industry's leading playbook to keep your data safe, protected, and available. There's keynote-worthy news about Veeam's latest product updates. You're going to want to watch this. You're going to learn how to take full control over where and how your data is stored and the best practices from data resilience experts who are leading the way. And again, this is a virtual summit. So you can go from wherever you are, modern world, right? The Veeam on Data Resilience Summit. You want to know more? Register right now. It's free. You can join online for free. Don't miss the Veeam on Data Resilience Summit on October 1st. And all you have to do is go to VEEAM.com to learn more. Veeam.com. Don't delay, though, because it's October 1st, so it's coming up soon. The Veeam on Data Resilience Summit. And honestly, if you don't, it's on you at this point. you got to do it. You got to do it. Veeam, we're very glad to have them and their support on This Week in tech, as we are also very glad to have Rob Pegoraro, who's slowly wasting away close to Crystal City. You can read his stuff at Pegoraro.com, of course, Fast Company.
RobPegoraro.com.
Rob, so let's get the Rob. Is there another Pegoraro?
There are. So that part of if you go to northern Italy, like Vicenza specifically, you will see a reasonable.
That's where my people are from.
My last name.
That's where my people are from. So that's good. Of course, RobPegoraro.com, but also Fast Company and
PC Mag,
PC Mag,
Wirecutter,
and all of that.
Many other fine publications.
Thank you for being here, Rob. We really appreciate it. And go get something to eat. Do you know what's for dinner?
I think it's going to be pasta. Actually, somehow the tomatoes are doing all right, so I'll do a quick sauce with some garlic
from your own tomatoes.
Yeah.
Now I'm jealous.
And basil, I've never had it growing so well. I don't know what I was doing wrong. Although the other year we've been in the house 20 years, but yeah, we could do pesto sauce once a week easily.
Oh, I'm so jealous now. The first time I ever had pesto, 1967, in near Genoa. And nobody had ever had it in the United States. My mom, I was 11. My mom went, "What is this?" And she started making pesto at home for the rest of my life, and it's the best thing ever. Fresh pesto. Enjoy. Thank you, Rob, for being here. I really appreciate it.
That's right.
Thank you also to Mrs. Ben Parr, newly married.
I will not be having pesto tonight.
What will you be having?
I'm not sure. Depends on what Mrs. Parr wants.
What's the takeout menu look like for today?
I have some bulgogi beef, and I have some veggie
bulgogi.
stir fry, and I have some salad that I need to make. So it will definitely
Very
be
nice.
something.
Very nice. Ben is the author of The AI Analyst. You can read him in the information. Of course, his company, early on doing this, Octane AI. Anything else you want to plug, Ben?
Like I said at the very beginning, I'll have another thing to plug maybe the next time I'm here. New title. We will see.
Ooh, how exciting. Does it have anything to do with Flappy
titles.
Bird? No? Okay. Just
Yes,
checking.
I am the new Flappy Bird.
Congratulations.
It made its way back to this week, so we didn't get to that story, but we'll save that. Actually, we had a lot of stories we didn't get to. We'll have to get to them later in the week, maybe on Tuesday on MacBreak Weekly with Alex, Lindsay, and Andy and Jason. Thank you for being here, Alex. Doing double duty this week.
Yeah, pleasure.
I would feel guilty, except for the fact that you're on officehours.global 7 days a week anyway.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Jeez.
We have a good time. So it's every day.
Did you do cooking this weekend?
I didn't do any major cooking. I'm going to make some stuff for next week. I've really gotten into quinoa because I learned.
Oh, I love quinoa. Oh,
I kept on burning it and I didn't do any other things. I learned how to make it in my rice cooker.
Yeah, you can make it in a rice cooker. I just found that out too. Blows me away.
Now it's like nothing, and so I make so much of it. So for the whole family, and you throw a bunch of stuff into it, and it's like couscous. So you can just kind of throw things into it, and it tastes great. And so I'm going to be making some of that. I'm also it's almost soup season, so another week or two, and I'll start making I usually make 10 quarts of soup on a Sunday, and then while I'm watching a Steeler game or whatever, and then I just put it in mason jars and put it in the fridge.
Nice.
And now I don't have to think about it. So I'm getting pretty excited about that.
I have some tortellini brodo waiting for me that I made before a vacation and froze and now have it.
So that sounds good.
Can't wait. Yeah. Thank you, Alex. We'll see you Tuesday on MacBreak Weekly and Monday through Friday Monday through Sunday at officehours.global. Thank you all for joining us. A special thanks to our Club TWiT members who make it possible to continue to do this show. If you're not yet a member of Club TWiT, I'd love to encourage you to join. It's only $7 a month, ad-free versions of all the shows, but you also get access to special programming. And we've got some special programming coming up. In fact, Thursday, we're going to do a special with Chris Marquardt, our photo guy. He's going to do his assignment review and come up with a new assignment, and maybe we'll do a little photographic talking. That'll be Friday. Did I say Thursday? It'll be Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Club members, you can see it in the Discord, but we'll also stream it on all the usual places. And I'm working on some other ideas of things we might want to do live, including some live coding, which should be a lot of fun. We're getting ready for December and the annual Advent of Code, 25 days, 25 times 2 coding problems. They're usually very, very difficult. And maybe with your help, I can get them this year. So stay tuned for that if you're a member of the club. All that will be available in the Discord. twit.tv/clubtwit. Of course, the reason you do it really is to keep the content coming. We want to keep doing these shows. Thanks to Micah Sargent, who filled in for me during our vacation, to Ian Thompson and Devendra Hardawar, Jason Snell. Really appreciate it. Lets me get away for a little bit, but I'm back now for the rest of the year and the rest of next year probably. Thank you all for being here, and we will see. Oh, and thanks Benito Gonzalez, who is remote working, technical directing this show. Will be editing it as well. Benito's in his house. Show us, Benito. Say hello. Say hello to the people. Yeah, that's a good shot of you, Benito.
I didn't put it in. It's not in
Are you
there.
being shy? Anthony Neal. There he is. There's Benito and his synthesizer. Look at this. Is that a gaming machine? What do you got going on there?
That's a modular synthesizer. It makes music.
Wow.
Whoa.
When are you going to do... Oh, and it looks like you got the old mixer that we started TWiT on, or is that yours?
No, that's mine.
Oh, okay. Because that's very much like the original mixer that we started the show on.
It's actually Skynet. I don't believe you.
I think he's got something going.
I mean, I've
there.
been teasing doing like a music stream for a while, and I just
We want you to do that.
Do it. I'm gonna do it. I am gonna do it. I just
Please
been lazy about setting up my OBS and all that stuff. So.
Please, let's do it. We'd love to have you in the club doing some music for us. Thanks to Anthony Nielsen, our creative director, who created a crazy neon TWiT logo behind me, and Burke McQuinn, who helped doing all the wiring and the lighting and got that all fixed up, and Russell Tammany, who is our independent IT guy, who really does keep this running, keeps the bits flowing. Thanks to all of you for being here, and we will see you next week for episode 999. Whoa. Episode 1000 coming up in 2 weeks. Wow. Hard to believe. And as I've said, for 998 episodes, another
You were about
TWiT.
to say years, weren't you?
It felt like years. To Rob, it definitely feels like years. I want to see how long I can stretch this out. No, I won't do that to you, Rob. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Amazing.